I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee.
Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the virtual Town Hall meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:15 p.m. Send your email to budgettalk@atlantaga.gov. If you'd prefer, you can submit a video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885.
We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you.
I'm Phyllis Jackson. Thanks so much for joining us for Stay at Home Connect.
The CDC issues new guidance about antibody testing. The organization says in populations where COVID-19 prevalence is low, it's possible that less than half of those testing positive will have antibodies. Because of these inaccuracies, the organization says antibody testing should not be used to make a determination on schools, dorms, or correctional facilities, and that testing should not be used to determine immune status. Census officials want to make sure filling out the census remains a priority. I recently spoke with Marilyn Stevens, Assistant Regional Census Manager for the Atlanta region.
The federal government allocates $675 billion in resources annually, $7 trillion over the decade, to many of the programs and services that communities depend on. Programs for seniors, such as Meals on Wheels, programs for veterans, highway construction and planning, even some of the supplemental benefits that many residents are really depending on now during this pandemic, SNAP and WIC, affordable housing, Section 8 vouchers. The list is endless, more than 140 programs. Without the count, no one really knows how deep the need is.
Due to the pandemic, non-response follow-up, the largest operation for the census, has been pushed back until late July. The new deadline to respond to the 2020 census is October 31st. You can respond by mail, you can go online to my2020census.gov, or by phone at 844-330-2020. Atlanta City Council member Andrea Boone joins with the Family Health Centers of Georgia and MARTA to provide free COVID-19 testing at the H.E. Holmes MARTA station.
That's going to do it for Stay at Home Connect. I hope you have a great evening.
Councilmember Jennifer Ide. The time is now 10 a.m. on Thursday, May 28, 2020, and we're returning for our fifth day of the City Council review of the Mayor's proposed fiscal year 21 municipal budget, which we refer to as our budget hearing. I'm joined this morning by Vice Chair Howard Shook of the Finance Executive Committee, and I'm going to ask if our staff can do a quick roll call right now so we can see which other members of City Council were able to join us this morning. Ms. Kempson-Wright or Mr. Pace?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. Council
Okay.
President Melissa A. Moore. Councilmember Carla Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Amir R. Faroki.
Here.
Councilmember Antonio Brown. Councilmember Cleta Winslow. Councilmember Natalie Mosby Archibong. Councilmember Howard Shook. Councilmember J.P. Mazakite. Councilmember Dustin Hillis.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea L. Boone.
Present.
Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet.
Present.
Councilmember Joyce Shepard.
Present.
Councilmember Michael Julian Bund. Councilmember Matt Westmoreland.
Here.
Councilmember Andre Dickens.
All right,
Councilmember, there are a total of 8 council members and council president online.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kempson-Wright, and I'm sure that other members will be cycling in and out as their schedules permit. So for my colleagues, the presentations will be up on Microsoft Teams. They were also emailed to you this morning. So look in your inbox. I think they came in around 8:52. The public may view the hearings on Channel 26, on the City Council's Facebook Live, Twitter, and Council homepages, as well as YouTube, as well as listening to the conference bridge. Okay, we've also been joined by Councilmember Brown. And all the presentations are available on the Council's website, located under the Finance Executive Committee's Fiscal Year 21 budget page. We have 4 presentations. Today the schedule is 10 a.m., the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME. At 10:30, the Professional Association of City Employees, PACE. We'll have a break at 11:30, the International Association of Firefighters. And at 12:30, the International Brotherhood of Police Officers. That is going to be our schedule. We're going to stick to the start times of 10, 10:30, 11:30, and 12:30, so we may end up taking some breaks if people finish early. And we are going to start with AFSCME. We have with us this morning the president of Local 1644, Tracy Thornhill, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Thornhill and ask him to introduce the rest of his team who we have with him this morning. And just start with your presentation or any questions or comments that you have. We've also been joined by Councilmember Archibong as well. So, Mr. Thornhill, you have the floor. Somebody can check in and make sure that AFSCME's phone line is unmuted. That would be great. Thanks. We're going to take just a minute to figure out what our technical issues are so that we can get Ask Me online.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Thornhill. I'm glad you could join us. And I don't know if you could hear me before, but this is your slot now at 10 o'clock, and I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce your team, and then you can just start going with whether you have a presentation or whether you have questions and comments. I'm going to hand the microphone over to you.
Okay. My name is Tracy Thornhill. I'm the president of Asheville, Georgia.
Can I just give them out? Yes, but thank you.
Oh.
All right, if everybody except Mr. Thornhill could mute your call.
And I got to protect my voters.
All right. If everybody can mute your phone except for Mr. Thornhill, then we'll be able to hear his presentation.
Is everybody muted?
I think so.
Everybody's muted. Okay. I'm Tracy Thornhill, president of Asheville, Georgia. I come as one. I stand as 1.6 million members. I'm joined by my executive director, Hamida Embry, who also serves as our treasurer of North Georgia Labor Council, and my secretary-treasurer, Krista Jeffries. I'm also joined by the chapter chair for the city of Atlanta, Carlton Ham, and also one of my trusted union reps, Martha Parker. First, let me thank the committee and the members of council for the leadership and care and concern you have shown during these pandemic times. You may not get the spotlight, but we do get the city council that's holding the city together. And I appreciate you for your leadership and your service to the community. I've been an employee with the city of Atlanta for 30 plus years. Sometimes I feel like the same script, just different players. We have to take care of our police. We have to take care of our fire department. And some politicians knocking themselves over to brand themselves as public safety. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about sewer, sanitation, which are also public safety, water and roads, public safety, traffic signals, infrastructure, public safety, corrections, 911 dispatchers. All of my members are left behind, it seems like. For many years, we have been looked at as being invisible. And we learned in the past 3 months that people started noticing us when we out there. People started coming out of their houses and telling us what a good job we're doing. Because most times when people go to work, they pull their can out, and when they come home, the can is empty, never seeing us. Never seeing us. We've met so many different citizens in watershed, in public works, in parks. People just walked up and thanked us for doing our job the way that we do. We haven't missed a beat. You called us to act. We haven't missed a beat. We come to work every day. We come to work. Sometimes we have to stay late. Sometimes we have to do things that we normally wouldn't do. Sometimes for that older person, we have to walk up in their yard and pull their can down. Sometimes in watershed, somebody that's not used to going in a hole have to go in a hole. So what we're saying now is that all of us are public safety. All of our jobs mean something. And what COVID-19 did was bring it all to light. COVID-19 showed everybody that every piece of this city worked as one, along with police, along with fire, along with watersheds, sanitation, streets and highways. So we all work together to make this city great. And we got 5 things that we're going to talk about because we know we only got 30 minutes. So we're going to talk about pay increases, training, hazard pay, raise the protection plan for the union to grade 22, and we're going to talk a little bit about human resources. So ultimately, budgets are just a reflection of our values. So the question becomes, how much do you really value us? Again, we appreciate the impact COVID-19 will have on our budget. but please appreciate the sacrifice our members have made this year and year out, because we didn't change our job. We just kept doing it as we were supposed to do it. So with that being said, we're going to get to the first thing, and it's going to be different people, and I have them call their name when they start talking. The first thing we're going to get to is pay increase, and that's going to be myself. We don't want our salaries. We want to keep this going to coincide with hazard pay. We don't want our salaries to drop when this pandemic is over with. We don't want to keep getting the $500 per month. We want it on the back end of our salaries. We feel like we deserve at least a 3.5% increase this year, and before we even get to next year too. So with the pay increases, we think that we have proven ourselves year in, year out, and year in and year out, we end up getting pitted against maybe police or fire, and they say, well, we see on the news where they say we're going to take care of police and we're going to give them a $20,000 increase, and we're going to give fire a $25,000 increase. But we are here every day, working every day, and we see this, and it has completely killed the morale of our people. But we still come in every day and do the job that we are supposed to do. Pay increases would mean that we can afford to live in the city, because right now, many of us can't live in the city because we don't really make enough money to live in the city of Atlanta. Pay increases will motivate people. They want to come to work. They don't want to take off. You know, a lot of times now, when you have bad weather and a city worker see that they have 300 vacation hours, they'll take a day on that day because they just don't feel appreciated. So pay increase would change so much. And with that pay increase, we want our hazard pay. We want to add it on to our pay. We want hazard pay because every day this COVID thing, it just showed people what we were worth. That don't mean that we're going to get what we worth. We want what we worth. This thing came in and they're going to pay us for up until July. But what about after July? We're still doing the same job. We still out here hustling. We still out here, still got guys running behind the garbage trucks every day. They don't know what they're dumping in those cans. And the guys in sewer and water, they don't know what's going through those lines, those sewer lines and water lines. They don't know when they have to go in the creek what infection is out there, but they do it anyway. And we want to be compensated like we work. And with that, if y'all got any questions on it, y'all can ask me now, and then I'm going to go to training on this. Hello?
Yep, we're still here. We got
okay. I'm asking if y'all got any questions, y'all can ask them, and I'll answer them the best I can.
Okay, we have been we've been trying to let everybody get through their presentations and then ask questions at the end.
All right.
Why don't I'll do that, and I'll keep a list of council members who
okay.
To speak
all right.
The
first one.
You just continue.
Okay, the first one was pay increase. The next one is training, and that's going to be Martha Parker talking to you now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As far as the training, we feel like that we need adequate training, which we really don't have, and in order for us to be successful and to strengthen the skills of each employee for improvement, we think training would really be additive to the company, because there's a lot of employees that's being hired, and some of them are being hired and even promoted because of certifications, but the training is not there, and it really is a risk being in the field working with coworkers that's not trained. And we have had, we've had some things to happen this year with some of our employees as far as injuries. But we feel like the training is really a part of the safety, and we really need more training and adequate training. Go ahead.
Okay, now training, we're going to bounce back to hazard pay, and we don't know exactly how you guys are going to do this, but we definitely have a petition here. And I didn't get it over to you because the person that was had the petition couldn't get it to me. And I have a petition here with everybody signing about they want to keep their hazard pay in place. We definitely want to keep our hazard pay in place. And we just, right now, we feeling like we underpaid and underappreciated through our pay. People tell us they appreciate us, but through our pay, we can't tell it. And when we get increases, we really don't want our increases to be tied with upgrades. We just want the people that's grade up to grade 18 to be able to go up in their grade and not be promoted out of the union, in which I'm going to let Mr. Ham going to speak about that right now. So this is Carlton Ham speaking to you now.
I'm speaking on race protection. AFSCME is regulated to protect 18 and below. What we do need, because you will be depleting the union if you do not either raise the grade up to a 22 or either raise the pay and leave them at an 18. But what normally happens when you get raised a grade, you lose your protection from 18 or above. And that's the problem that we're having, losing members. We have members right now that are still paying into the union, and they're not protected. And that's not fair to us as a union or to them as an employee. So something has to be done to meet both needs, for us as a union and for the employees also. So what we're asking is to be raised, the grades to be raised up to a 22 to be protected, or either raise the pay raise and keep them at an 18. But we still need them to have civil service rights. Even though they're raised to a 22, they still need the same protection as they would have being an 18. So that's the problem with the raised protection.
And that was the raised protection. And now we're going to go back to Martha Parker, and this is going to be human resource and management.
Okay, with human resource, the human resource is so many. There's so many people that we have to go through. We have a problem with our payroll, where we don't have direct contact with the payroll person. And once we do get contact with a payroll person, it's like 3 or 4 people that's doing it, and no one is really being accountable as far as either messing up our checks or the time that they taking or not taking. We having a problem with the human resource as far as our payroll, and this throughout the city department. We feel like that we need better human resources as far as caring about the employees, and not only that, as I was speaking as far as the training, even with the training coming from the human resource, we don't have the adequate training. But as far as the human resource, we should not have to go through 4 or 5 different people and still have our payroll checked incorrectly. So we do have we have a problem with human resource as far as having direct contact, and even the communication. The communication is terrible with the human resource also.
Okay, so those was our 5 bullet points. So any questions you guys got, y'all can direct them to me. I'll answer them as best I can.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Thornhill and the rest of your team. I'm going to call first on Councilmember Antonio Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Thornhill, it's a pleasure to hear you on this line today, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing. So I have a few questions. I heard on today's call, you all spoke about the 3.5% pay increase. I also heard on this call that there's an issue with the grades and the protections around the grades. When folks' grades are increased beyond 18, they're no longer protected by the union, and they no longer have their civil service rights. I also heard about training, technical assistance that's needed in the field with our workers. And then I also heard about the payroll issue around finance. So my question is, before this call, Mr. Thornhill, have you made any efforts to coordinate with the administration in addressing these issues? And the reason why I ask is because as a council, as a body, we can advocate for you and we can get a lot of these items addressed. And especially like the payroll issue, that's something we can work with you all to get addressed through finance to ensure that there's a dedicated resource to assist in ensuring that the payroll issue doesn't continue to happen. And as far as the training is concerned, we can work with the department heads to ensure that that is happening and that there is adequate technical training in place, especially for these more vulnerable positions that are out in the community doing this hazardous work. So I guess my question is, Mr. Thornhill, one, have you compiled a letter for council to see before this budget call in regards to these 5 issues? And then the other piece of this is, what is there a way we can collectively work together outside of this budget call to address these more nuanced issues that we have access to these department heads in the finance department to try to get these issues rectified?
Well, to us, everything is tied in to the budget. And all of these issues, I have a monthly, all the way up until February, I have a monthly meeting with Commissioner Jeff Foreman. And I assure you that all these issues have been brought up. And when we talk about bringing them up to department head, they just pass the buck. So, when we do this, we have a wit's end. And now, and they would have been addressed in March, but, they shut everything down. Because our plan was to escalate everything all the way up until budget, but we didn't have a chance to do that. And but that's why we're bringing up pay increase. We always address pay increase at budget. We always address hazard pay at budget. Training, it costs. So we address training at budget. Now, the raise protection plan, that was something that they implemented in mid-2019, and it just hit us like a ton of bricks. As far as we had people that had been in ASME for 20 years, and then they got a promotion that they did not apply for. And by them getting a promotion that they did not apply for, they did not want to give up their civil service rights. And when told they didn't want to give up their civil service rights, they would rather stay at 18. They were told that they didn't have a job for them, they would be let go. So at this point, I don't know where else to bring it to, because we've addressed our human resources and our commissioner about these things. And then we went through 2 different human resource commissioners in a year. So one passes to the other one don't know what you're talking about. So that's where we get caught up in the shuffle. And so that's why we putting it on the table to you guys now. It just happened to be we doing it in a year where everything's been shut down since March. And we're doing it in a year where we having this COVID thing. And that's what bring housing pay to light, because people never even really considered housing pay for us. I've been here over 30 years. You know how long we've been asking for housing pay? No one department can give us housing pay. This is something that's got to be approved through city council. It's got to be written in stone. You know, people talk a good game, but we've been doing this for years, and we have not received housing pay yet. So in this emergency, we're seeing it because people are seeing what we do, and it was almost justifiable. But we ain't stopped doing nothing that we were doing 30 years ago. We've been doing the same thing. It's now that people looking out their door and seeing when everybody else is in the house that their city workers are still out here working. So, you know, we can try to put some of on the but
yeah, Mr. Thornhill, I don't mean to interrupt you, I apologize. I just want to get to the crevice of what your need is. Have you Chairwoman Ide has done an incredible job, addressing some of the nuances within the budget. So my request to you, Mr. Thornhill, because I know you and I understand a lot of the frustrations through the union, is the pay raises, those issues, yes, those are necessary for budget. And for us to be able to collectively work through this conversation here. The issues around some of the other points that were made up, I'm sure other council members would agree, but if you could put together a letter and address it to Chairwoman Ide and the body of City Council, we can work together with the departments to address like the training issue, the payroll issue with finance. We can even address the issues around the civil service rights and the protections and the forced grade increases. We can address those things with the necessary departments to find solutions. So if you can compile a letter, and I know you have monthlies, and I know that you've been attempting to do this, but I'm making a commitment to you today on this call that if you send me a letter identifying the issues in which are departmental related, I will work with those commissioners, I will work with HR, I will work with our Chairwoman Ide to go through the process of addressing these concerns and finding solutions. And if there is not a solution, at least advocating on behalf of the union so that we can start moving these things forward, because these are important issues, and you all are our front line. And we have to do everything we can to continue to lift you up and support you.
Okay, understood. So, all right, let's say if we move training and protection plan and human resource stuff, we still got issues on the table with pay increases and hazardous pay.
Agreed.
We still have issue with that, and I know that comes with the budget. So we advocating for a 3.5% increase, and also hazardous pay to continue. We don't want to have...
Mr. Thornhill, I'm going to yield to my colleagues. They have questions. I'll yield to my colleagues. Chairwoman Ide, thank you so much. Mr. Thornhill, get us that letter so we can start working through those other issues.
We'll definitely have that letter ready for you early next week.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, and we are running a little bit long, but I do have Councilmember Joyce Shepard is next, and then after her, Councilmember Madeline Archibong. So, Ms. Shepard, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Thornhill, and I just want to say to you and all the workers for the city that I truly appreciate everything you all do, and I just, your blessing, and I'm sad that through COVID-19 that we had to really make people realize how important you all were. I've always advocated for workers, and in particular our public works workers who's out there picking up trash every day. I mean, I would love to know, again, in terms of comparison, what others who pay their public workers compared to us in the city of Atlanta, especially cities equivalent to our size. It would be a great question to ask. Some of the things you talked about was interesting to me because, number one, you're saying that if you get upgraded over 18, wage scale 18, that you still are actually having union dues taken out. Is that what I heard you say? And if so, I need to understand, if you are not then being protected by the union, I need to ask either not you or either the HR department, why would union dues still be taken out if you're not protected any longer by the union? That doesn't make sense to me. So, and I'm not saying that what you're saying is not correct. I just need to understand the rationale behind that as to why you be paying union dues and you're not protected by the union after you go over a certain scale. I just don't understand why you're still paying union dues. And training is really key. You know, that's one of the things that I say all the time, even before the budget cut, is that we need to properly train our employees. And so I'm with you in terms of the training and support for the training. But what I need from you is documents showing, you know, Mr. Brown asked for a letter. I would like to have some documentation literally talking about all these particular things in terms of the different scales, the union dues. Break it down in terms of something that we can really, really look at in terms of data showing that. And I want to know if somebody from the HR department is actually listening can even possibly respond to some of this. Oh, I don't know if we can, Madam Chair, but I have concerns. I have more questions around this. And I know this is something we only have so many minutes, but I need to talk to the HR department also and ask them if they can respond to any of these things that Mr. Thornhill was saying.
Yeah, Ms. Shepherd, thank you for that. And I do believe, I'm going to let us run over a few minutes on this because we got started a few minutes late. So my apologies to Pace. If you're on the line waiting, we will try to get to you soon. I want to recognize one, Councilmember Cleta Winslow did join us during the course of this call. And then we do, I believe, have our Interim Commissioner of Human Resources, Mr. Norman, on the phone. So if you could just quickly respond, and then maybe we could continue the dialogue, you know, after this hearing. But I do want to give our HR Commissioner an opportunity to respond to some of the discussion that we had this morning.
Are you, Ms. Shepherd, y'all asking me to respond?
No, I'm asking the HR department to respond.
Okay. All right.
Good morning. Jeffrey Norman, Interim HR Commissioner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. And so I have had an opportunity to listen in and to Mr. Thornhill's concerns. And so just want to, I think this was referenced earlier by Mr. Thornhill. And so during the latter part of 2019, I did establish, along with Mr. Thornhill, the opportunity for us to schedule monthly meetings to allow AFSCME to provide any type of issues and concerns to the HR department. As an initial matter, as I just want to let folks know that the HR department has remained accessible during this pandemic period. And as Mr. Thornhill is aware, there were discussions with AFSCME as well as PACE prior to imposition of the hazard pay, because those concerns were shared with members of the administration as well as directly with the HR department. And so we did keep them updated as we move forward with imposition of that hazard pay and hazard pay compensatory time program. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. And so we have definitely, from our perspective, been very responsive to any concerns that were raised about the increased concerns with working during the pandemic period. We have not had direct engagement at my level relative to a 3.5% increase. Obviously, that is something, that we will make note of, but that's not something we have been actively involved with any discussions, and about the transfer of any hazard pay payments beyond that has been approved up to this point. Number two, with the training concerns, to the extent that there are training concerns that raise safety issues within the department, we're definitely more than happy to work with the Department of Public Works or any of the other departments to ensure that they have effective opportunities for folks to receive training and to help them identify how to move forward with addressing any technical assistance improvements. Relative to the raised protection concerns that were raised, that is I think a conversation that was raised during our pre-pandemic discussion that Mr. Thornhill did bring to the table. Obviously, as the council is aware, that is something that is currently codified. And so obviously, when departments make decisions, they make those things in concert with the current provisions provided within city code so that they remain in compliance when they make determinations that they want to do reclassifications. And so at current, obviously departments operate within the parameters of those things that are codified. We have not had additional conversations about that during the pandemic period, but obviously HR remains available to have those discussions as well as any others that the unions may bring forth along with the administration. And the last piece, I need to get some more information relative to the payroll issues so I can coordinate with the Department of Finance on those. But that is a kind of overview of where we stand at this point. But obviously, as Mr. Thornhill should be aware, we have definitely been very open. All of those concerns that he brings to the table, we take in good faith. And we obviously operate within those parameters established by the code at this point.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say thank you, Commissioner Norman. And Ms. Shepherd, you do your follow-up, and then we'll move to Ms. Archibald.
I promise I'm going to move on. So I'm really concerned about, again, when they increase in terms of their scale and they're not protected by the union, but they're still getting the union dues taken out. That's actually financially a financial strain, too. Why would we not? I mean, you said that's codified. I heard you, I think, saying that. I find that to be really interesting, that if you're not protected by the union after you go up to a certain grade scale, then you shouldn't be having your union dues taken out. So if we need to go back and look at that, that's something that we should have been looking at quite some time.
Ms. Shepherd, I don't mean to cut you off, but union dues are voluntary, and those people don't want to be out of the union. That's why they still paying. It's
but
not that.
Why would they get protected? I mean, why would they do that?
Because here's the thing. They want to be protected, and they want us to do what we're doing right now, is telling you to raise the grade to a grade 22. That is why they still there, because they are loyal union members, and they did not want to get out. They understood this.
Okay, well, that's a lot of questions, and we're not going to get into it now, but I do have a lot of questions. So if you all, Mr. Norman, if you can help me in terms of some of the concerns he has with showing you data, and Mr. Thornhill, if you could show me that too, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepherd. And I'm going to give Councilmember Archibald a few minutes to ask her questions, and then we need to move on to PACE, but we will follow up with
you, Mr. Thornhill, on other questions. So, Councilmember Archibong.
Thank you. And then in the interest of time, I will say that the questions that have already been posed and the concerns that have already been raised, I share those. I wanted to just say as a point of position that Mr. Thornhill is absolutely correct that this budget will be a reflection of our values, and to have the frontline workers that have put themselves out not only during the pandemic but all the times that they have, we really need to be mindful of that. The questions that I had, Ms. Shepherd really asked all those. It was relative to the pay grade 22, and I'm also, I'd like to have Chairwoman Odd an opportunity for the Finance Exec Committee to kind of really look at how we determine compensation, the hazard pay, and how we can make adjustments in this budget to incorporate some of the compensation requests that have been made. That's our job. The budget is a policy document, and we are the policymakers. And so I hope that the Finance Department is on standby to also do calculations to try to help us meet some increases that we may find are warranted given a reexamination of our, as Mr. Thornhill says, our other line of safety workers that are keeping our city safe. So that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Archibong. So, Mr. Thornhill, I apologize we don't have more time to continue this conversation this morning, but I think we have the 5 main points of pay increase, training, hazard pay, raising the union class, and HR issues. I'm happy if you all want to put more of that in writing, that we will consider that, and as Councilmember Archibong suggested, discuss it at our next Finance Executive Committee, but I'm happy to circulate to all the council members anything else that you'd like to share with us for this budget season, and do feel free to continue to follow up with us since we had a limited amount of time today. So thank you for you and your team for being here. Thank you to your members for all you do to keep the city running. I do agree with Councilmembers Shepherd and Archibong that we have seen what essential workers your members are in keeping our city running during this time during the pandemic, and really that they are the frontline workers. So we will take all of your input under serious consideration as we deliberate on this budget this year.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to be sending over a copy of the petition that all the employees signed, and we'll have all of this to you. And the stuff that Antonio Brown asked about, we'll have this to you early next week. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Thornhill, and thank you to the rest of your team. We are going to roll right into the Professional Association of City Employees PACE. If we have Ms. Pagnotta and her team on the line. Gina Pagnotta is the president, and national vice president.
We're going to be staying over.
I'm sorry, Mr. Thornhill. I didn't realize you were still speaking. So you're going to send over the petitions and any other materials you want us to look at? All right, I think we're going to move on then to Professional Association of City Employees. So if we have Ms. Pagnotta with PACE here, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and anybody else on your team who you have with you today. Thank you.
Good morning, City Council. This is Gina Pagnotta Murphy. Can everyone hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay. I have on the line, I think, Evie Walton, who is PACE Vice President. Evie, are you there?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning. First, I think I sent a presentation to you, not in the format of but it's in the format of a memo, pretty much like a letter. So if you have that, I kind of categorize this in blocks of paragraphs. I want to briefly read through them. I've highlighted throughout the memo of things that we are asking for, but pretty much we want to first give, because we have new council members, and I want to set a precedence to understand what we're about. PACE stands for Professional Association of City Employees. And the professional association, we pledge ourselves to improve the general welfare of all city employees, their families, dependents, communities in the interest of a higher standard of citizenship within the city of Atlanta. PACE accomplishes this by serving as a legitimate representative of our members as city workers in wages, rate of pay, working conditions, employment disputes, prohibited discrimination, benefits, protection of legal rights, and a shield against unfair labor practices. At any time as I'm reading this, and I'm going to go because of the time reading it, I hope I don't read it too fast, but if you have the copy, you can follow me, but at any time you can stop and ask questions. I'd be appreciative of that. Under the authority of Section 6 of the City of Atlanta Labor Relations Ordinance, recognized and granted all employees the right to union representation, to include unclassified employees grades 19 through 27 who can become a member of PACE. Specifically, City Ordinance Section 114.504 states that there will be no disparate treatment against or in favor of any employee because such employee is a member of a union. In the past and to date, a memorandum of understanding is used between PACE and the mayor, and as right now, Mayor Bottoms, or her designee in the administration, which embodies the consensus for union organization. I say that as I go forward, as you would know, the reason I'm spelling this out indirectly is because there has been some taintedness against employees from management and supervisors that have disparate treatment against employees when they find out that they're in a union, especially unclassified employees, because they say you are at will and we can fire you for whatever reason. And that is not correctly accurate. The expectations that PACE, there's a misunderstanding throughout some department heads that unclassified employees does not have and is not allowed union representation. At times, departments terminate unclassified employees because they're considered at will and will not allow them to have a rebuttal or even given an opportunity to have discussions with their union representatives and labor relations. However, we found that almost 80% of these cases that we represent are wrongfully terminations, and those employees either take a settlement to return to work with a tremendous payback. And this causes the city a lot of money in legal litigations and financial windfalls in the end. And those employees usually file an EEOC complaint and is given the right to sue the city for such. And most of those times they do that with an outside attorney. And at that point, PACE doesn't get involved once they get an outside attorney. So we're hoping that before it gets to that point, that PACE works with those members and the city in a fair manner to get this wrong right. The money spent for these misguidances can be utilized in better operations such as raises. Because this is happening, often PACE is requesting that the Atlanta City Council give guidance to the Department of Human Resources to set a clear understanding with department heads that according to the code that was legislated by your authority, to allow these employees to have their rights to representation during any proceedings of disciplinary action that includes specifically for unclassified people performance improvement plans. Although unclassified employees do not have the right to be heard through civil service hearings, they do have the right to representation where and when needed. I want to say that Labor Relations Director James Merriweather has found a great working relationship with PACE to investigate our complaints and has advised department heads to do the right thing when they have made errors in their decisions. However, sometimes even his recommendations are challenged and overlooked by those departments. Henceforth, you have lawsuits. The central idea of PACE is to build city employment relationship with our members and management better and not worse. PACE is one of the primary resources for the city of Atlanta to encourage city employees to abide by the fair and reasonable expectations of their employment. It is only when unfair labor practices, unspoken or spoken expectations like in PIPs, workplace bullying, harassment, intimidation, threats, and unsettled disputes arise that PACE becomes involved to negotiate settlements of disputes before they escalate the lawsuits and arduous legal litigation. It is our union's belief it is the best possible course of action. We receive and listen to evidence provided by our members every day of what they perceive to be an unlawful employment action or an unfair labor practice. And I've listed quite a few. I won't have to go through them. I've already mentioned them, but as you can see, there are several ones, and each one of these, especially the whistleblower claims, each one of these, the city has not been abided by with these employees who make these claims. They are ostracized and sometimes terminated. City employees often feel they have no recourse for their claims to be properly vetted and secured. Our members believe that a report of any unlawful activity asserted against the City of Atlanta will result in the demise of their job, even if their assertions are proven true. The question is often presented to them within themselves as to which role should I predominate, that of divulging unlawful activity or that of retaining employment, and sometimes they keep quiet. PACE is the only intermediary that can reconcile the two. Therefore, the city should see PACE as a primary bargaining unit that protects our city employee members on these issues while at the same time protecting the city from endless public scrutiny and continuous financial litigation while also protecting the whistleblower. And I do believe the city is failing on that aspect of the whistleblower. Workplace safety and health. Employee health and safety concerns has been reported to PACE daily. Although EAP has been overwhelmed before the pandemic of employees having stress issues due to workplace bullying, we have learned recently that there has been a tremendous increase of EAP-assisted claims filed by employees who are undergoing additional stress, hypertension, and panic conditions that are related to continued harassment by their city management, even as they're working from home, teleworking. As much stress as we already experienced through this pandemic, there is no empathy to employees who suffer serious medical conditions and recognize disabilities under the Americans with Disabilities Act. They're afraid to disclose a disability for the fear of retaliation, and we've had some cases of this. Even though their condition has been documented by their physician, Atlanta physicians have provided medical narratives stating that the stressful employment conditions within the city of Atlanta is the underlying reason for our members' medical condition throughout the serious pandemic. There seems to be more concern and more offbeat rules put in place than the concern for the employee's sanity, even on case-by-case instances. PACE is obviously concerned about our employees' health and safety, and in light of this information we have received from our members, we are requesting that the Atlanta City Council investigate deeply these workplace health and safety concerns with EAP and find in the city budget of 2021 additional money to help increase staffing in the EAP department under the leadership of Dr. Adrian Bradford. This financial focus in that department can help assist the physical and the emotional health of our members throughout this pandemic as we go on further. E911 communication. We are pleased to announce a complete turnaround of positivity in the 911 call center under Director Pritchett. These unsettling times have shined a bright light on our first responders, not just the firemen, police officers, and EMT workers, but also our essential frontline family who are always overlooked, the dispatchers in the Atlanta Police Department. When you think about it, the beginning of the first responders is the call. 911, what is your emergency? Before any fire, police, or EMT arrives to the scene, the dispatchers are the ones to disseminate this. They first have to find out what is going on with the caller, get accurate information, addresses, and may have to remain on the line until the paramedics arrive. This is very stressful alone. Think about it. You are a 911 dispatcher. You get a call, and the caller says, my husband is trying to kill me. He has a gun, a knife, and you can hear all the commotion, the cursing, the screaming, and you have to still get information to dispatch the first responders. Is this stress enough for you? I could go on and tell you stories that PACE has heard from some of them, and I myself know this isn't a job for me and never would have it. However, they are one of the lowest paid group of individuals we have, but they are the most important team this city has for its citizens. Like the Delta pilot that is often seen as the driving force of the airline industry because he has to fly the plane. So is the policemen and the women of APD, and rightfully so. They lay their lives on the line daily like the heroes they are. Our very own Batman, but we often overlook Robin, the trusty sidekick that makes things all in place for our hero to continue to be heroic. City of Atlanta dispatchers start off making $34,700 a year. Dispatchers are listed as the number 7 most stressful job in America, only 2 spots away from police at number 5 and commercial pilots at number 4. Yet the pay for the dispatchers is over 30% less. PACE is requesting that City Council and the Mayor strongly consider and legislate 911 communications employees be designated as first responders
as well as with the police, fire, and EMT. And they should be compensated on a monetary scale up to 25% of their current salary. I'd like to bring your attention now to city audit reimbursements. I recently learned that there was an audit conducted last budget year, and in that audit it was noted that while retirement contributions to deferred compensation accounts and parking fees were deducted accurately, the city deducted incorrect amounts for 56% of insurance premiums from employees' September 2017 paycheck. Although the Department of Human Resources is aware of the overage and requested reimbursement from the third-party administrator, it did not ensure employees receive refunds for overpaid premiums. There has been no discussion with the Union of PACE on this situation, and members have been asking if the City Council was in discussion with the administration on how this was and will be directed. If there is money that was refunded to the city for overpayment, PACE is requesting that, one, to have discussion with the union in terms of reimbursing the funds to employees, or two, set the total amount that was reimbursed and use these funds as additional help for the frontline workers to continue to get hazard pay through this pandemic. Financial status. Because we know that the city closed down for several months due to the pandemic, the city has lost the revenue for the general fund in which our employees are paid from. Therefore, PACE is not going to request at this time across the board salary increases, but to continue to find money to support the hazard pay for all of our frontline hero workers while we continue to go through this pandemic. But we will circle back for pay increases for the 2022 budget year. PACE is also requested that the City Council do not approve any reclassifications of classified employees being moved to unclassified positions at this time. Employees feel that there is an alleged intent by some departments telling employees that they may or will get a raise. We have received numerous calls and heard in meetings from our members saying that this is a plot for management to be able to lay off workers during the budget year after the pandemic without following a proper process that's already in legislation. PACE was informed that this action was to satisfy salary compression, but salary compression should have been dealt with before the pandemic. In fact, this should have been dealt with in last year's budget. If there will come a time when a layoff is needed, PACE is requesting to allow employees to give an opportunity on ways to save money before any personnel is laid off from their jobs. Please do not allow this new normal taint our decision-making on money saving using layoffs to our employees. And in conclusion, PACE views it as our duty to meet and confer with the mayor or her designee, the Atlanta City Council, Department of Human Resources, and department heads to address the needs and concerns of our City of Atlanta employees. We encourage City Council to ensure that our communications are met with an even discussion to agree and to allow change in legislation where necessary and when necessary. PACE needs to be at that table. We will continue to accomplish the successful retention of valued city workers. We do not advocate for employees who clearly violate city rules, ordinance, or state laws, but in return, PACE wants to be taken seriously when we bring complaints and requests to you. We are committed to representing our members and keeping a positive and transparent open communication with City Council and the administration. And that closes my presentation. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you so much, Ms. Pagnotta Murphy. I'm going to call on Councilmember Justin Hillett first.
Thank you, Chairwoman Ide, and thank you for the presentation, Ms. Pagnotta Murphy. I wanted to say first that I'm very glad to hear of the better environment and changes at E911. I know that was a big point of discussion at last year's budget presentations, and I was chair of public safety at the time. I know we were very adamant about seeing changes there, and that was led at the time by Deputy Chief Crair, who's now the chief of MARTA. So we're very thankful for those changes that have been made and for the leadership of Director Pritchett. And then secondly, I just wanted to state that I do hear you about the raises that are needed in public safety, and know, as everyone is aware, we've addressed or in the midst of addressing our sworn public safety personnel and fire and police, but we also need to go back, I believe this year and take a look in preparation for next year, as you mentioned, the pay of the non-sworn personnel and our public safety positions. So that's something I'll be pushing forward to have a study done regarding that. And just know you have my support on that. And thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hillis. Are there any other council members who have a question or would like to speak to the PACE presentation? All right, I am not hearing from anybody else. Thank you so much, Ms. Pagnota-Murphy. This was a great presentation.
Well, let me say this. I'm very surprised that I don't hear anything because I would like to hear something from someone. Thank you, Mr. Councilman Hillis, regarding this. I take it that I must have had a fantastic presentation, that there's no room for questions. I still would like to hear something regarding the, I guess maybe HR or someone about the city audit reimbursements. I think that should be, and again, I don't feel like this is being taken seriously. Maybe I did a good job, and if so, I would like to hear that. But I would like to have someone follow up about some of the stuff that I'm saying. Please understand what I'm trying to accomplish here is that City Council already legislated rules and regulations. But what in a nutshell, what I'm saying, that in some department heads are not following this and they're not getting discipline as well. I've always preached this, who polices the police? And we're still not getting there. Labor Relations is doing their best, but it seems that they're not the sword to cut the limb. So I'm just trying to figure out where do we go from here, City Council? I mean, especially for the, I'm just elated that I haven't heard anything or nobody has any questions.
Well, there seemed to be a little technology delay. I did just get, it just came through who was in the lineup. So I am going to call on Councilmember Overstreet first, then Councilmember Shepard, and then Council President Felicia Moore. The messages were just slow and coming through when I asked for questions. So Councilmember Overstreet.
Yes, thank you, Chair Ide. And yes, your presentation was excellent. You gave us a lot of information that we need to think about. And I did have my hand raised before you asked for us to raise our hands. I just want you to know that. But no, honestly, we are all remote, so I do understand that sometimes things aren't flowing as fast as we'd like them to, and that's fine. But don't want you to think that you're on an island by yourself. One thing I have really grown to appreciate about you is that if you have an issue, you don't stand around and brew. You give us a call, and I appreciate that. When you didn't understand something that I did, you picked up the phone and called me, and we talked that through. And so my pledge to you is that I will absolutely look into your presentation in depth and figure out how we can better serve you, because I think you're making some valid points, and I just wanted to weigh in on that. Don't have an opinion about the details yet because I do want to look more into it, but I appreciate your always openness about communicating, and I will call you directly about what I'm finding and how we can continue to work on your issues right now. Just wanted you to know that.
Thank you, Council.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Overstreet. Councilmember Shepard.
Yeah, thank you. I muted my line. They wouldn't let me talk then. I said that was what was happening. But thank you for your hard work as always. I'm still mystified by this whole unclassified, classified workers, and I just would like to see, even in terms of we talking about the different wage scales of 18 and you go up to 22 or whatever, and then you're unclassified. Is that precedent across have we did best practices in looking at other data that validates that? I'm just trying to understand where we are with that, because I find it to be really interesting. I don't know if you know. I really am supportive of you in terms of our public safety issues, in terms of health and where we are and the support from the EAP and all of that. concur with everything. I like Ms. Overstreet, has not had a chance to read the whole document, so I would take the time to do that, reach back out to you. But I just want, can you answer that question about the classified? What's the history of that? Can you give me any history on that real quickly?
Well, to my understanding, the classified versus unclassified, normally I heard a little bit of pieces of what Ashley was saying. Basically, the way it's been written and understood, which I have been challenging for open enrollment for any member to any union they choose. The city has designated certain classifications for employees to go into certain unions. 18 and below normally is for ASME, with certain set-aside classifications or with PACE, and PACE specifically handles 19 to 27 grades. And once they move from the 18 to 19 and above, two things are happening. Number one, they're no longer considered classified, so they don't have civil service rights. They can be fired at will. And number two, they will no longer be in the what we consider the ASME area of interest. They would actually would need to come out and come into the PACE area of interest. So those are the two things. I am not for neither one of those. I mean, I understand what Mr. Thornhill was trying to say about that, and those employees wants to stay in the union, and they should have that opportunity to do so. They've been paying dues for a long time in that union. They're comfortable with their leadership as well as my people. And just because they're moved from one grade to another, number one, should not impact their union of choice. And that's where we need to go back and look at their union of choice. It could be another conversation. My main concern is the fact that we're moving the information that I'm receiving. The reason why we're moving people from unclassified to unclassified is because the city or the department wants to give them a raise, and the only way they can do it is move them up into another classification. We only can give them 10% increase. So my theory was, I looked around and looked at certain classifications that Public Works is trying to do, and I'm looking at some of these folks are nowhere near their ceiling already. So why is it that we need to move these people from being unclassified to classified instead of just moving the range of salary? And I was told by HR in a discussion in that department that would affect the whole entire city. I did not see it such. I have not yet started to challenge that because we're still in this budget presentation, and that's why I mentioned that to you. Right now through this pandemic, this is something that I feel we should not even be trying. Yes, give employees more money if we got it. You take care of our frontline workers that's out there and give them that hazard pay, finding money to continue to pay them because we don't know when this is going to be over with. But right now, I don't feel that it's in our best interest on either side to have these employees move from one grade to be classified to unclassified to be fired will. So when the time comes, if and I hope not, but when there come budget cuts, that the department heads will use that latitude because you're at will, I can just let you go without using the proper process that we already have legislated. So I'm not sure what, Mr. Thornhill's that take on that was. I heard him, but I know what those two penalties are.
All right, thank you. I got more questions, but I won't answer it now. We'll wait until we get back to finance. Thank you, Ms. Odd, and thank you, Zena. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepherd. Next in line is Council President Felicia Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was going to speak when the ASME and Mr. Thornhill gave his presentation, but I know you're on time crunch. I'll just make this really brief. I think two things. One thing that I heard on both that the council certainly can look at in terms of policy is the hazard pay and the continuation of that. If there is some room or some way in the budget that we can do that. But also, I think that they have brought up a lot of other issues that I don't think that we can probably resolve between now and the end of mid-June when the budget is passed.
but are certainly things that need to be looked at, particularly when Ms. Pagnata Murphy talked about the whistleblower protections, I guess it would be a budget item, making sure the EAP is stood up, because a lot of employees do utilize that service, and there is a lot of emotional stress. And I mean, from what I hear from employees who contact me, there is a lot of workplace bullying and a lot of other stress that are put on employees that we may not be directly aware of. And then at some point, we do need to sit down with the unions and discuss, who covers who. But one of the main things, the last thing I will say is, if I'm hearing Ms. Pagnata Murphy correctly, because I have not looked at the personnel paper, and I guess I would ask Mr. Norman if this is correct. What I'm hearing is that there are several positions that are going to be made unclassified that are now classified in this budget, and I think her concern and issue is well taken, that if that is the case, then they can be let go at will versus having the civil service protection. So is there a large number of employees, or a small number, whatever number, in this personnel paper that are going to be unclassified?
Thank you.
Jeff.
Oh, yeah, Mr.
And that's my question. Thank you, Ms. Madison.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Council President Moore. And Mr. Norman, if you want to give a quick response to that, that would be great.
Okay. Good morning, Jeffrey Norman. And so, I just wanted to briefly comment on the question about the personnel paper. And obviously, once we socialize and circulate the personnel paper, we will be able to address those concerns more specifically. What I did want to share, as I think the council is well aware, that from the presentations and from, I think, the original overview that we provided, I think the administration was very clear that, there was a attempt to make sure that all field positions were funded with the expectation that there would not be any employees put into a position where they had concerns about whether they would maintain their employment based on the current financial implications of the pandemic. And so the only positions that were not funded were some of those vacant positions. And so we are still in the process of compiling the request from the respective departments, and we'll be prepared to speak to those when we do present the actual personnel paper for FY21.
Thank you, Commissioner Norman. It sounds like we need to continue this conversation, but we look forward to getting the personnel paper. We are going to wrap it up now, and we will start back up with fire at 11:30. So thank you to Pace, Ms. Pagnata Murphy. We will, dive into these issues that you've raised today and certainly continue these conversations. But thank you to you and your team. Thank you to all the City of Atlanta employees who are represented by Pace, who are keeping the city going during this time. And we will definitely take everything that you have shared with us today in consideration and have some conversations with HR about addressing these concerns. So we're going to go on.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. We're going to go on a short break, and we're going to reconvene at 11:30 with the International Association of Firefighters.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Hi, I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee. Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the virtual town hall meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:15 p.m. Send your email to budgettalk@atlantaga.gov. If you'd prefer, you can submit a video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885. We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you.
I'm Phyllis Jackson. Thanks so much for joining us for Stay at Home Connect.
The CDC issues new guidance about antibody testing. The organization says in populations where COVID-19 prevalence is low, it's possible that less than half of those testing positive will have antibodies. Because of these inaccuracies, the organization says antibody testing should not be used to make a determination on schools, dorms, or correctional facilities, and that testing should not be used to determine immune status. Census officials want to make sure filling out the census remains a priority. I recently spoke with Marilyn Stevens, Assistant Regional Census Manager for the Atlanta region.
The federal government allocates $675 billion in resources annually, $7 trillion over the decade, to many of the programs and services that communities depend on. Programs for seniors, such as Meals on Wheels, programs for veterans, highway construction and planning, even some of the supplemental benefits that many residents are really depending on now during this pandemic, SNAP and WIC, affordable housing, Section 8 vouchers. The list is endless, more than 140 programs. Without the count, no one really knows how deep the need is.
Due to the pandemic, non-response follow-up, the largest operation for the census, has been pushed back until late July. The new deadline to respond to the 2020 census is October 31st. You can respond by mail, you can go online to my2020census.gov, or by phone at 844-330-2020. Atlanta City Council member Andrea Boone joins with the Family Health Centers of Georgia and MARTA to provide free COVID-19 testing at the H.E. Holmes MARTA station.
That's going to do it for Stay at Home Connect. I hope you have a great evening.
Can one girl in a small town, an architect in a major city, and a suburban high school coach shape the future of the United States? Yes, they can. Because every 10 years, the census gives us that power. You can shape your future by responding to the 2020 census. Where do we need new roads to make our lives easier? Where will new school programs help our children thrive? Where could a new health clinic benefit neighborhoods? The 2020 census will inform these decisions and shape how billions of dollars will be distributed to communities like yours each year. And in 2020, you can respond to the census online, by phone, or by mail. It's easy, safe, and important. Make sure you and everyone you know is counted. Now is the time for you to get involved. Your community needs you. Together, we can educate and excite, inspire, and make sure every voice is heard. Together, we can shape our future.
I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee. Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the virtual town hall meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:15 p.m. Send your email to budgettalk@atlantaga.gov. If you'd prefer, you can submit a video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885. We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you.
I'm Phyllis Jackson. Thanks so much for joining us for Stay at Home Connect.
The CDC issues new guidance about antibody testing. The organization says in populations where COVID-19 prevalence is low, it's possible that less than half of those testing positive will have antibodies. Because of these inaccuracies, the organization says antibody testing should not be used to make a determination on schools, dorms, or correctional facilities, and that testing should not be used to determine immune status. Census officials want to make sure filling out the census remains a priority. I recently spoke with Marilyn Stevens, Assistant Regional Census Manager for the Atlanta region.
The federal government allocates $675 billion in resources annually, $7 trillion over the decade, to many of the programs and services that communities depend on. Programs for seniors, such as Meals on Wheels, programs for veterans, highway construction and planning, even some of the supplemental benefits that many residents are really depending on now during this pandemic, SNAP and WIC, affordable housing, Section 8 vouchers. The list is endless, more than 140 programs. Without the count, no one really knows how deep the need is.
Due to the pandemic, non-response follow-up, the largest operation for the census, has been pushed back until late July. The new deadline to respond to the 2020 census is October 31st. You can respond by mail, you can go online to my2020census.gov, or by phone at 844-330-2020. Atlanta City Council member Andrea Boone joins with the Family Health Centers of Georgia and MARTA to provide free COVID-19 testing at the H.E. Holmes MARTA station.
That's going to do it for Stay at Home Connect. I hope you have a great evening.
Hi, I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee. Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the virtual town hall meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:15 p.m. Send your email to budgettalk@atlantaga.gov. If you'd prefer, you can submit a video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885. We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you.
Can one girl in a small town, an architect in a major city, and a suburban high school coach shape the future of the United States? Yes, they can. Because every 10 years, the census gives us that power. You can shape your future by responding to the 2020 census. Where do we need new roads to make our lives easier? Where will new school programs help our children thrive? Where could a new health clinic benefit neighborhoods? The 2020 census will inform these decisions and shape how billions of dollars will be distributed to communities like yours each year. And in 2020, you can respond to the census online, by phone, or by mail. It's easy, safe, and important. Make sure you and everyone you know is counted. Now is the time for you to get involved. Your community needs you. Together, we can educate and excite, inspire and make sure every voice is heard. Together, we can shape our future.
Hearing from Councilmember Jennifer Ide. It is now 11:30 in the morning, Thursday, May 28th. This is the second half of our fifth day of budget hearings. This morning we heard from AFSCME and from PACE, and now we're going to move into the International Association of Firefighters, and after them, the International Brotherhood of Police Officers. So I'm going to ask the fire union to introduce themselves, and then we're going to watch the video presentation that they've had, and then they can continue with their presentation. So if Local 134 could introduce themselves, and then we'll key up the video and we will start your presentation.
Hello, this is Paul.
Hey, Paul, do you have Mr. Bailey or anybody else with you today, or are you handling this yourself?
It is myself and Nate Bailey. Is this Jennifer?
It is.
Hi, Ms. Ine. How are you today?
I am fine, and I believe we have about 8 or 9 other council members, as well as Council President Felicia Moore, on the line with us this morning. So do you want us to play your video first, and then you'll do the rest of your presentation after that?
Yeah, that would be great. We can get that started whenever you're ready. We're ready here. I want to introduce myself and Nate Bailey. Are we beginning right now?
Yep, we are ready to start. So I'm just going to turn it over to you all, and just let me know when you're ready for them to start playing the video.
Okay, great. Thanks, Councilmember Ide. This is Paul Gertis, and with me today is Nate Bailey. We are the representatives with the Atlanta Professional Firefighters. We represent the firefighters in the Atlanta Fire and Rescue Department. And we've got a short presentation for you all today. We appreciate Madam Chair Ide having us here. I'm glad to hear that there's so many council members on this call as well as Council President Moore. We prepared a short video, and if you are ready to start that video, you can go ahead and start that brief video.
Okay, let's go ahead and start the fire video.
You may have heard about NFPA 1710, the industry standard for career fire departments. But what is it? And what does it mean for our community? Your house is on fire. It's your worst nightmare. In just 3 minutes, a fire can grow 16 times larger than when it started. And it continues to grow bigger and faster every second. Once the clock starts ticking, there's a shrinking window of opportunity to save lives and property. You want a full crew of firefighters to put it out quickly, or you may suffer a catastrophic loss. But how many are enough? 15, 20, 40? How do you decide? Fortunately, there's an internationally recognized industry standard. It's called NFPA 1710, and it's based on scientific evidence and research that establishes how many firefighters are needed to put out each fire and rescue anyone trapped. At a fire scene, you want a firefighter doing every job that needs to be done to save you and your house. And at a fire, there's a lot that needs to be done, like stretching the hose, hooking to a hydrant, searching for trapped people, venting the hot gases, and much more. For a low-hazard single-family house fire, NFPA 1710 specifies a minimum of 15 firefighters dispatched in the initial alarm. At an open-air strip shopping center or garden apartment fire, the standard specifies a minimum of 28 firefighters dispatched in the first alarm. And for fires in high-rise buildings at least 7 stories tall, the data show that the initial dispatch should be for a minimum of 43 firefighters, and that fire departments should send additional firefighters to situations that are beyond the capability of the initial alarm. When considering crew size on each engine and truck responding to a fire, the standard says that in low-hazard response areas like residential neighborhoods, the required number of firefighters on each fire engine and truck is 4. In areas with a high number of incidents or geographic restrictions like narrow roads, single-access bridges, or islands, a minimum of 5 firefighters on each fire engine and ladder truck is required. and in dense urban areas with high hazard occupancies like high-rise buildings, the minimum number of firefighters on each fire engine or truck is 6. Regardless of the type of property, 1710 also sets the time of arrival on scene within 4 minutes for the first engine with 4 firefighters. The 1710 standard for both response time and crew size is based on scientific evidence, not opinion. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, known as NIST, and its partners conducted extensive research to document the optimal crew sizes for various types of structures. As a decision maker, you and firefighters share a common goal. Everyone gets out alive. So when a house is on fire, just remember, it takes a minimum of 15 firefighters to put it out. And the responding crews should have the right number of firefighters on each engine and truck. The quicker the response time, the better the outcome for everyone. For more information, talk to your local firefighters. Thanks for listening, and stay safe.
All right, so if we can bring back up Fire's presentation, I'll turn it back over to you, Paul.
Okay, let me know when we're on that slide number 2, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Is that the one that says firefighters in the community?
Correct.
Yep.
First line is, okay. You'll see on this particular slide that this is a response to an open records request that we had put in earlier in the year and was received on March 8th, 2020. Our field operations division, this is our firefighters in the community in our downtown operations at 579 personnel assigned to it, broken down by each particular shift. In our aviation operations division at 186 personnel broken down by each particular shift. And you can also see the recruits that were in training at that particular time, breaking down by the different recruit classes. Why that's important is that number of 579 and 186 is short of the authorized strength. The AFRD authorized strength per shift is 256 in field operation, which is a difference there of close to 61 firefighters for the A shift and as well as in the 60s and 70s on the B and the C shifts, for a total combined of 189 short firefighters in the community. Airport in aviation operations has an authorized strength of 231, and they're short by 45 firefighters in the airport community. Now, when this report was generated, there were some errors. There were some resignations and some terminations, and as well as other just members left on the actual open records report that doesn't get calculated as well. So there is a degree of error on that report as well, but not a huge degree. To help offset the firefighters in the community, the fire department made a great decision to add the support services team into the field operations and airport operations to supplement by 28 people. Why that's still important, however, is that for us to have 4 firefighters on every apparatus, which is recommended, as you saw, by the NFPA and by NIST, we would need to have a total of 202 people on shift every single day to put four firefighters on each apparatus in the community. You can see if everybody had showed up on each one of those particular shifts, we wouldn't even meet that 4 and 4 standard. So our resources, as far as personnel, are hotted there as far as where we're lacking firefighters in the community. If we can move on to the next particular slide. To help support the NFPA 1710 video you saw on the NIST recommendation of the firefighters, Dallas, Texas did a comprehensive study that was published in Managing the Fire Service, which was produced by the International City of Managers Association. They put Dallas, Texas firefighters through a series of exercises of fireground operations, and they determined that 6 was the optimal number of firefighters on the apparatus to perform all operations during firefighting activities. For Atlanta Fire and Rescue to have 6 on every single apparatus, we would need 292 firefighters in the community. As you move firefighters off of the apparatuses, and you're down to where we're at, which is an agreed upon number right now. You've had the pleasure of speaking with Fire Chief Slaughter, and he's been given 2 excellent reports within the last 10 days. He's advised city council members that we are riding with a minimum of 3 firefighters on every single apparatus within the city in our community. 3 firefighters effectiveness is only 32% effective on getting all fireground operations completed in the event of a structure fire. 3 firefighters on every apparatus puts 157 firefighters in the community on a daily basis, far below the recommended 6, but also a huge difference between a 4-person apparatus. Now, a 4-person apparatus has been the practice for the past decade, and we were able to achieve that through either proper staffing levels or through the hiring of overtime. And recently, the practice of hiring overtime to add a 4th person to the apparatus has been put on hold. The firefighters, we have the available personnel on off-duty shifts to come in and supplement that 4th person, but the practice of reducing our overtime expense has cut into adding that 4th firefighter to the operation. Now, I know I'm only speaking about fireground operations, but also this plays into our EMS calls. 2 of the most traumatizing events that could happen in your home would be a structure fire. The other would be a family member or a loved one in cardiac arrest. The American Heart Association recommends 6 people performing CPR in different positions for the optimal success rate of recovering somebody that is in cardiac arrest, whereas a group of 4 firefighters can perform at that same operating level if they divided the duties. A 3-person engine does not have the support staff to perform those duties on a medical call, such as a cardiac arrest in our homes. And we can move on to the next slide. Putting more firefighters in the community. We've highlighted the traditional method on the left of what it takes to add firefighters into the community. The traditional method is hiring applicants with 0 experience. The program length currently is about 72 weeks, 18 months. And we put the candidates through a full track fire and EMS training at an approximate cost of $92,000 per candidate. On the right side, we are recommending a modified recruit class, where we could actually recruit current firefighters with paramedic and EMT certs. These certs and current firefighters will allow us to do a modified recruit school in, you can see, a fraction of the time. I know listening to the public safety briefing yesterday, Councilmember Hillis was asking about lateral programs, and Chief Slaughter, was adamant that a 28-week program, a 28-day program is not long enough. I absolutely agree. A 28 program is not long enough. The question was then asked, well, do we need something that's going to be full track 72 weeks, or can we find something in between 6 weeks and 72 weeks? I absolutely believe we absolutely can. Our training staff is prepared, and they actually have programs in place that they can focus the training on specific AFRD procedures, SOPs, and tactics, so that we can put safe firefighters in the community. The traditional method is expensive, and the duration of time takes longer to put members into the community. A modified class, it's got you'll have lower, doesn't mean we're going to lower the standards. We can still raise the standards of the firefighters that we are putting through our training academies. It would lower the cost of recruiting. And in today's, environment, when city council members are having to make decisions about cutting programs and revenues being cut, it seems like this is a very viable option. We'll have the opportunity to inject more firefighters in the community at a quicker pace. If we go to our final slide, recommendations for this fiscal year, this is where we're going to lean on city council members. I think if you've listened to the fire chief's presentation over the last 10 days, you did hear him say that he has recognized stations that he recommends 5 firefighters on those apparatuses. We couldn't agree more. The stations on our outlying stations, like Station 31 and 19, and 9 that are further away from the community, are being staffed at 3. Close you get to the city and the high-rise buildings, we're still staffing them at 3. And when you're downtown on 10th Street, we only have 3 on each apparatus. We need to find innovative ways to put more firefighters in the community. One of those things would be to open the job application process. Mayor Bottoms has announced a historic pay raise for the firefighters back in December. However, our application process is not open. Nobody can come to the City of Atlanta website and apply to be a firefighter in the City of Atlanta. A focused recruiting on firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs would supplement the staffing crisis that we're in with only 3 members on each apparatus. We recommend that City Council members maintain the Mayor Lance Bottoms' commitment to the FRD wage adjustments. And we further recommend that the Mercer study pay and wage recommendation that was submitted in 2019 be fully funded and dispensed throughout the firefighters, the FRD firefighters. The final point that we need City Council members' assistance, and if you heard Chief Slaughter, we are under-resourced. Building a dedicated facility for our firefighters to put them in the community is we're desperate need. Our training center has been closed since January, and it's definitely impacted the speed in which we can put firefighters into the community. The COVID pandemic has obviously affected that as well, and if we are not a department that moves and changes with the times, then firefighter candidates will be picked up by other departments in the Southeast. I know I've ran through 5 quick slides and presented a great video for you, and we are done with our presentation here. I know the City Council members generally have some questions for myself and Nate, so if anybody's got any questions, we'd be happy to entertain those questions at this time.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We do have a lineup, and any other City Council members, send me a message if you would like to get in line. We're going to start with Councilmember Dustin Hillis.
Thank you, Chairwoman Hyde, and thank you, Lieutenant Gertis, for the presentation. The first thing I wanted to ask is, I guess, seeking some clarity on what we were told in the AFRD budget presentation versus what is in your presentation. When we were talking about the academy, I asked for the links, and I believe I was told 11 months, yet in your presentation it shows 72 weeks, which is about 16 and a half months. Do you have any insight into that?
Well, a lot of it has to do with resources, Mr. Hillis, and the fire chief, hit on this particular point. It's not only that the facility isn't open at the moment, but we are under-resourced. The fire training staff can only handle 70 to 100 recruits in a particular year. And so much, we've actually outsourced our EMS training to the Atlanta Technical College to train 30 recruits in the EMS field. And those will put delays into putting our firefighters in our community. The opportunity to do a modified recruit class will speed that up.
Right, and what the minimum for a firefighter in Atlanta, is it EMT or AEMT?
Currently, they need to be trained up to an advanced EMT.
Okay.
In the state.
How long is that part of the training?
Councilmember Hillis, this is Nate Bailey. That's what takes the longest with our training is the EMT portion. Speaking with our fire staff, our captains of training, fire training can be done in 11 to 12 weeks. But because we put so much training and emphasis on the EMT, and now we're training them to be advanced EMTs, that's what takes so long. And if some of those members fail on the first attempt, it holds up the rest of the class from moving on in the training. I think the last class, it took over 14 months to graduate, and we have a class in recruit school now that's already been in well over 12, 13 months. So that's what really takes so long. And, you know, one of the things, too, we pay for them. We pay them a salary, and we train them, but some of these members may not even pass. So we've invested a year of tax dollars, you know, into some of these recruits that never provide a service to the citizens. But if we did a modified class, you know, these firefighters would already be certified, and they would already be bringing all those certifications to the city.
Right, and as I expressed, Chief Slaughter, I certainly support looking into that. And as Lieutenant Gertis stated, you know, to me, it's not one or the other. I think we can pursue the academy for new recruits, and we can also pursue training for laterals so we can get experienced people into AFRD quicker and not be, I mean, we have three classes going right now. The first one being in for, I guess, about 14 months now.
That's correct. The class that started on 19-1 began March 2019, and they are still in the recruit school phase.
Yeah. So not only is it concerning that we don't have a lateral program, it's also concerning to me how long our current recruit class takes. And certainly we may be okay for a while since they will be graduating soon, hopefully, within fiscal year 21. But, you know, when we look at this time next year, we may be hurting because, as you mentioned, we haven't started a recruit class in September of 19. And the current budget proposes that we fund 0 vacant positions, even in our public safety departments of AFRD and APD. So I'm hoping we can re-examine that. So, but with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues. And thank you for your time and your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hillis. Next in line is Councilmember Joyce Shepard.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I get clarity on Chief Slaughter presented at the public safety last week. So we have 70 to 100 recruits a year. And right now we don't have a facility. So are you all saying that is it because of the facility that we can't recruit more, or is it in terms of just what we have in terms of what we actually offer in terms of budget? So make me understand between the budget. So even if we had a great facility, would that number increase?
Well, thank you, Ms. Shepard. This is Paul speaking here. I absolutely think that a facility would drive candidates to the city of Atlanta. The presence of a great-looking training facility, something that's innovative and changing, as the dynamics of fireground operations change, dynamics of ACLS care changes. We need to maintain those changes as well. Our infrastructure is old, and it has done a great job at preparing firefighters for a long time. But if we didn't maintain our facilities like we haven't, we're going to be in a position where we will be scrambling to put classrooms up. Modular classrooms can be put up. Additional resources like the college is fine, but that's going to come at particular cost. If we've got training facilities that we own that are state of the art, then we will no doubt attract firefighters into the city. The mayor has announced a plan to change our firefighters' wages. You know, once those plans come to full fruition, we can use that as a marketing tool. And one of the things that we're unable to do right now is bring people into our training facility as well as advertise what our current salaries are going to be.
Thank you. I'm not sure, maybe I didn't word it right, but my question, and maybe you can't answer this, maybe the chief from the fire department can, but if we had what is the issue in terms of we have 70 to 100 recruits we do a year? And my question is that based on the fact of wages, even before the pandemic, or is it because our facility is not large enough to handle?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Sure. I apologize. So with that, it comes to this. It is a resource issue. We only have so many classrooms, and we only have so many training staff available to train these members. And if we've got full track members getting trained as recruits, then our current training division is going to be tied up. Not only are they going to be tied up with recruits, they're going to be tied up with training the firefighters that are currently on the rigs. And it's not 70 to 100 per year. We've got a 100 in recruit school right now. Next calendar year, there isn't a plan to add recruits. It takes about 6 months from application to actual recruit class once you've started one. The current application process is not open right now. That's going to limit us as well. It's a huge task, and the fire chief can attest to that, to move 70 to 100 this particular year.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I do have concerns, let me just say, in terms of where we are in terms of capacity. The fact that we are at 3 people per truck, 3 and 3. The fact that we have recruits that we're going to graduate hopefully within the near future, and the fact that we don't have a class coming up, preparing for another class of folks who go into training. That is a major concern for me, and the fact that one of the reasons we don't have it is because we don't have a facility. And as I was told the other day by the administration, we are in the process of aggressively looking for a new training facility. I'm hoping that we will have one as soon as possible so we can begin to do that recruiting again. And maybe I need to ask someone from the administration to make sure that that's the assumption I'm making in terms of us looking at more recruits, or is it based on budget? So maybe I should be asking this question. Maybe I should ask somebody from the administration if they can answer that question for me. Is anybody there, Ms. Ott, can answer that?
No, ma'am. It's just myself and Nate Bailey.
So we should have the administration
listening.
Wait, Councilmember Shepherd, let me see. Do we have COO Williams or somebody from the administration on the line who could provide a response today? I know we had finance on. I'm not sure who else from the operations side may have joined us.
And if not, we need to put that in queue for our finance meeting next week, in the next couple of weeks, Ms. I, if we don't have anybody to respond today.
Okay. I'm afraid we may have to just put that on our list and circle back on that since I'm not hearing somebody from the administration jump in.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Shepherd. Next in line, I believe, is Councilmember Michael Bond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. My question is in the vein of Ms. Shepherd's. It goes back to the lateral transfers. I mean, it just helped me understand that. So that there's obviously a baseline qualification to be a firefighter in Georgia. Atlanta obviously goes beyond that to a certain degree or else these folks wouldn't need the additional training through our academy. Are these laterals, do they come in intermittently, or are they hired and brought in groups? How are they processed in?
Hey, Councilmember, this is Nate Bailey, and I actually was a lateral back in 2005. So the way we did it back then is we would do a hiring blitz just for prior experience. We would advertise for it, and we would bring in a group of 25 or 30 that all had prior experience. They would all be vetted the same way a regular firefighter would be, and then they would already have the state certification, which is, the baseline qualifications, and then the training staff would provide the extra training that just particular, for Atlanta. Like, we would go over MARTA, high-rise, and we would make sure they had, all of that training. Before, when we did it, though, 4 weeks, we only had 2 days. Out of 4 weeks, we only had 2 days of live fire training, and that's because we didn't have a burn facility. But, graciously, you all and Mayor Bottoms have funded a burn building that's in the process of being built on our drill yard, so we'll be able to provide more actual live fire training. Because I heard Chief Slaughter reference that yesterday, and I understand his concerns. You don't want to rush somebody too quickly out to the fire station without making sure that they can, keep themselves alive in a fire. And the firefighter that he referenced actually only had a 3-week recruit school because the chiefs back then at the time decided to put his class through a car seat technician class. So there were some firefighters rushed out, but I was a lateral. Most laterals have excelled in Atlanta Fire Rescue. Most of us have made rank as quickly as we can. And the main reason is we're coming from other departments. Like, we're choosing to leave an agency because we want to work for the city of Atlanta. And I just think it's a great way to supplement our staffing in a time of crisis. And to me, this is a time of crisis. We have never rode with 3 on an engine, especially the fire stations that are outliers, like Station 19. It's by itself. If it goes to the edge of the city, it's going to be 3 or 4 minutes before another engine shows up. Station 28, there's a lot of new, multiple, high-rise buildings. There's townhomes being built. If somebody needs to throw a ladder, you only have 3 firefighters on an engine. And, I'm at Paul Station now, so right nearby you have Station 5. They're riding with 3 firefighters. So the only way we see possible to make the city safe and keep the firefighters safe is to somehow, as a group, we all need to get together and find a way or a place to hire some experienced firefighters because they want to come here. We get messages all the time from firefighters all over the United States that would love to be an Atlanta firefighter. They're paramedics. They have all this extra training. They want to come here. We just have to advertise for them and bring them here.
Well, that leads to follow-up is supplement enforcement.
Yeah, we're getting some kind of feedback. I don't know if our IT can figure out.
I apologize. Somebody was backing the fire truck into the station, so we're trying to
okay. No worries.
Okay. Well, I guess the question is, has there type of get through the fire versus the overtime expenditure for having the when the cheaper hire have that experience, drop the class.
I'm sorry, Councilman.
You
we got a
hear
new
me?
driver that's obviously in training. If you could repeat that last part for me, I would appreciate it.
Well, okay, no problem. I was just asking, has there been an analysis of bringing in whether or not is it cheaper or more cost-effective to bring in firefighters with previous experience versus the cost of the overtime, because if you got overtime, you still don't have those positions filled. And there's to say that if you brought in folks who are lateral transfers, if they've got the basic experience, they could be assigned to perhaps not downtown where they would have to deal with the higher-end buildings, but they could at least supplement the out-of-line stations. Has anyone looked at that?
Yeah, correct. It is. That was one of our. If you all remember, we went back. That was one of our basis for the Mercer pay study. Is we were just bleeding overtime because it's time and a half for our salary, and we even had a bunch of firefighters going into premium pay because our staffing was so short. I don't have the exact numbers, but especially with a 6-week class, you're looking at $14,000 to outfit these firefighters and train them. That's maybe 12 days of overtime for a captain. So if that kind of puts into perspective, it would be much, much cheaper. And that's an analysis they did in 2005. I think in 2005, 2006, the city hired over 300 firefighters because they ran simultaneous full track classes and the modified recruit classes. I think we hired 120 laterals because that's when Mayor Franklin, that's when we first went to 4 and 4. And we ran 4 and 4. We started losing our members around 2012, 2013, and then we've just kind of been in a downward spin ever since then. And compensation was a big part of it. But now that we have that great tool of the Mercer study, we need to put it into action and get some members in the station.
Right. Well, I guess, Madam Chair, if this is something to suggestion to come back to, I'd like to hear at some point from finance about what, specific to the fire department, how are we looking at the projections for not just for this budget, but perhaps next year, and making sure that we can supplement some of these operations going forward. And then I've heard conversations over the last few years that, the police want to expand their academy out at Key Road, and, there's over 300 acres of land at Key Road. If perhaps, even though we're in uncertain times, of course, during the pandemic economically, but if there could be more solid effort and consideration for expanding or building the type of facility that fire needs, that would allow, to have more classroom space, and perhaps even a recapture program for people who have taught at the academy before, to help us bring in more firefighters to get it up to speed. Because it seems to me that we are hemorrhaging some money by the constraints that we're in. So if you could put a pin in that for us to come back to discuss, I would appreciate it. And thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councilmember Bond, and we will definitely put that on the list to circle back with finance and find a time either at FEC or a time with full council for them to respond to these questions. All right, I think next in line is Councilmember Overstreet. Had you held up your hand?
Yes. Thank you, Chair Ide, and thank you, Paul and Nate, for this presentation. I have a couple questions. First question, I need just a little clarity. When is the last time we actually had online applications? I wasn't aware that we were not accepting applications online for our firefighters. So that seems a bit stifling. So I wonder what the logic is behind that, and how do we usually do this? Have people, other than recruiting, how do we usually have an application process, and when's the last time we had one?
This is Paul Gertis, Councilmember Overstreet. That's a great question. I don't have the answer in front of me right now. It's something I will get with the background and recruiting team and get an answer for you. I think we missed an opportunity with the mayor's announcement about injecting $15 million in the fire department salaries in December, and to not have our application process open. We probably lost some opportunity. The environment now with unemployment claims going up, we're missing out on opportunities to hire. Other municipalities have not taken their foot off the gas here and are currently hiring and conducting recruit classes during this pandemic. And it's our concern if we don't do the same, then we're going to miss a lot of opportunities and a lot of candidates. I'll have to get back to you, though, with that answer.
Okay, because that's important. Like, we really need to know, when we were accepting applications online, how successful was that? Does it supplement the way we do, our recruitment process? How effective is it? And when's the next time we'll be able to do that again? We need all of those answers, because I do agree with you with your synopsis of what we need in order to really take advantage of the position that we've set ourselves up for. We really are set up for success in terms of what we're offering, our package, our employment package for firefighters. And I think that we need to work on our online phase, as well as making sure our training facilities are adequate and, best in class, actually. And that brings me to my next question. Have you had conversations about the Key Road location? Because I know Greenbrier is being, I was hoping that we were headed in that direction, where Greenbrier would be a great opportunity for Atlanta Police Department for the training academy to be there, as well as something at the Key location. And I'm thinking that that I need your weigh in. I want to know, what are your thoughts on that, budgetarily, and what could you do to help us move this ball in really pulling the trigger and making a decision about it, because I do feel that training and recruitment go hand in hand. So, and I plan to speak with the International Brotherhood of Police Officers next about it, just getting a real sense of where you all would like to go with our training facilities.
Ms. Overstreet, that's a great idea with the Greenbrier space. There is a lot of space over there. The Key Road area is a ton of space as well, and that is what we're asking for. We're asking for a commitment, and I believe it needs to be a city council member-driven, mission-oriented, focused task to put a public safety training facility together. The resources inside of the city, as the city builds up, we have to look out. We have to look towards our outliers. The Greenbrier area is perfect. It's got great highway access, and the facilities around it could support a training facility. Fire specific, we need classrooms, we need a burn building, we need a tower, we need a driving course. A lot to ask. At the moment, we are under-resourced, and if we don't do something now as the decision makers in the city, then we will find ourselves an obsolete fire department that has lowered the standard as far as training and bringing members into the community.
Understood. And thank you very much for those comments. And we'll just, I'm definitely going to have to circle back with you, because I want to know more about the application process, and we could just keep working with this, because I don't want to continue to miss these opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Overstreet.
Thank you, Councilmember Overstreet. Are there any other council members who have a question? And then I was trying to, we were going to see if I could get somebody from the administration online to respond to Ms. Shepard's question today. Anybody else have questions while I see if we can patch them in? Ms. Shepard, I may not be able to pull this off technology-wise of getting everybody.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I may not be able to get everybody online to answer questions right now.
Okay, that's fine. We will come back. But my colleagues asked a lot of good questions, and we'll either do this via the administration or FEC or also public safety. So I'm going to keep all those questions queued up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is just a little bit more complicated when we're all in different places. Well, thank you so much to our professional firefighters. This was a very informative presentation. You've left us with some follow-up that we're going to talk to finance and the administration about, and as Ms. Shepard suggested, we'll be discussing at public safety and at finance exec, and we'll certainly continue this conversation. We're going to take a short break until 12:30, I believe, was our kickoff time with the International Brotherhood of Police Officers. So we're going to take a 13-minute break, and then we will be back at 12:30 for our last session of the day.
The opportunity to address you, your committee, City Council President Moore, and the City Council members that were participating today. We appreciate you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you all, and thank you for all of the Atlanta Fire and Rescue employees who are out there keeping us safe, particularly in this difficult time. So have a great rest of the week and weekend, and we will be circling back with you on the issues you raised today.
Thank you. All right. You all do the same.
Hi, I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee. Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the virtual Town Hall meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:15 p.m. Send your email to budgettalk@atlantaga.gov. If you'd prefer, you can submit a video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885. We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you.
I'm Phyllis Jackson. Thanks so much for joining us for Stay at Home Connect.
The CDC issues new guidance about antibody testing. The organization says in populations where COVID-19 prevalence is low, it's possible that less than half of those testing positive will have antibodies. Because of these inaccuracies, the organization says antibody testing should not be used to make a determination on schools, dorms, or correctional facilities, and that testing should not be used to determine immune status. Census officials want to make sure filling out the census remains a priority. I recently spoke with Marilyn Stevens, Assistant Regional Census Manager for the Atlanta region.
The federal government allocates $675 billion in resources annually, $7 trillion over the decade, to many of the programs and services that communities depend on. Programs for seniors, such as Meals on Wheels, programs for veterans, highway construction and planning, even some of the supplemental benefits that many residents are really depending on now during this pandemic, SNAP and WIC, affordable housing, Section 8 vouchers. The list is endless, more than 140 programs. Without the count, no one really knows how deep the need is.
Due to the pandemic, non-response follow-up, the largest operation for the census, has been pushed back until late July. The new deadline to respond to the 2020 census is October 31st. You can respond by mail, you can go online to my2020census.gov, or by phone at 844-330-2020. Atlanta City Council member Andrea Boone joins with the Family Health Centers of Georgia and MARTA to provide free COVID-19 testing at the H.E. Holmes MARTA station.
That's going to do it for Stay at Home Connect. I hope you have a great evening.
Hi, I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee. Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the virtual town hall meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:15 p.m. Send your email to budgettalk@atlantaga.gov. If you'd prefer, you can submit a video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885. We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you.
Can one girl in a small town, an architect in a major city, and a suburban high school coach shape the future of the United States? Yes, they can. Because every 10 years, the census gives us that power. You can shape your future by responding to the 2020 census. Where do we need new roads to make our lives easier? Where will new school programs help our children thrive? Where could a new health clinic benefit neighborhoods? The 2020 census will inform these decisions and shape how billions of dollars will be distributed to communities like yours each year. And in 2020, you can respond to the census online, by phone, or by mail. It's easy, safe, and important. Make sure you and everyone you know is counted. Now is the time for you to get involved. Your community needs you. Together, we can educate and excite, inspire and make sure every voice is heard. Together, we can shape our future.
I'm Phyllis Jackson. Thanks so much for joining us for Stay at Home Connect.
The CDC issues new guidance about antibody testing. The organization says in populations where COVID-19 prevalence is low, it's possible that less than half of those testing positive will have antibodies. Because of these inaccuracies, the organization says antibody testing should not be used to make a determination on schools, dorms, or correctional facilities, and that testing should not be used to determine immune status. Census officials want to make sure filling out the census remains a priority. I recently spoke with Marilyn Stevens, Assistant Regional Census Manager for the Atlanta region.
The federal government allocates $675 billion in resources annually, $7 trillion over the decade, to many of the programs and services that communities depend on. Programs for seniors, such as Meals on Wheels, programs for veterans, highway construction and planning, even some of the supplemental benefits that many residents are really depending on now during this pandemic, SNAP and WIC, affordable housing, Section 8 vouchers. The list is endless, more than 140 programs. Without the count, no one really knows how deep the need is.
Due to the pandemic, non-response follow-up, the largest operation for the census, has been pushed back until late July. The new deadline to respond to the 2020 census is October 31st. You can respond by mail, you can go online to my2020census.gov, or by phone at 844-330-2020. Atlanta City Council member Andrea Boone joins with the Family Health Centers of Georgia and MARTA to provide free COVID-19 testing at the H.E. Holmes MARTA station.
That's going to do it for Stay at Home Connect. I hope you have a great evening.
Everybody, this is Councilmember Jennifer I, the Chair of the Finance Executive Committee. The time is now 12:30 on Thursday, May 28, 2020, and we are returning for the close of our fifth day of budget hearings on the fiscal year 2021 municipal budget. I'm joined by my Vice Chair, Howard Strick, of the Finance Executive Committee. We're going to take a quick roll call to see which other members of City Council are able to join us for this session. So if Ms. Kempson-Wright, you can do a roll call.
Yes. Council President Felicia Miller. Councilmember Carla Smith. Councilmember Amir Arfaroki.
Carla Smith,
Councilmember,
just FYI.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Perotti.
Council President Moore is here. I'm not sure if you heard me.
Thank you. I did.
Mine was muted.
Thank you. I believe they're all unmuted now. Councilmember Perotti. Councilmember Antonio Brown. Councilmember Cleta Winslow. Councilmember Natalie Archibald. Councilmember Howard Shook. Councilmember J.P. Mazakite. Councilmember Dustin Hillis.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea L. Boone.
Present.
Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet. Councilmember Joyce Shepard.
Here.
Councilmember Michael Julian Bond.
Here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Thank you. Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. And Councilmember Andre Dickens. Councilmember, that's a total of 7 on the line with you.
Thank you, Ms. Kempson. Right, and I think there may be a few others who are on who maybe were on mute, because I can see that Councilmember Overstreet and a few others are logged in. So I think some other colleagues will be joining us or maybe online and just weren't available for the roll call. We are going to jump into our last session of today's budget hearings, which is the International Brotherhood of Police Officers for the public. You can tune in to Channel 26, Facebook Live, Twitter, the City Council homepage, as well as YouTube. And the presentations are available on the Council's website, located under Finance Executive Committee, Fiscal Year 21 budget page. I'm going to turn it over to our president of Local 623 of the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, Jason Segura, and ask you to introduce your team, and then you can just jump into your presentation. I understand they're not slides, you'll just be giving
thank you.
presentation. Turning over the mic to you.
Yeah, okay. Just to make sure, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, and thank you guys for the opportunity today. I'm Sergeant Segura, and I'm the president of the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, Local 623, and the National Vice President of the National Association of Government Employees. On the phone with me is Kevin Knapp. Kevin is my vice president at Local 623, and we should also have Ken Allen, who is the past president and advisor to our council. Are you guys both on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm on. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, well, today we're simply here to say thank you to this council for your ongoing leadership during these difficult times, and also thank you to Chief Shields and members of this council who have maintained an open line of communications with us regarding the issues that are impacting our members. And really, lastly, we want to thank you all for your continued commitment to moving forward with the salary adjustments recommended by the Mercer study and for continuing to follow the agreed-upon timelines for completion. Chief Shields' budget proposal for this council maintains the promises, and with council's continued support, as well as the continued support of Mayor Bottoms, we look forward to continuing the task of protecting and serving the amazing citizens of the city of Atlanta. And that's pretty much what I have to say. Kevin, Ken, do you have anything else you would like to add?
No, sir. I believe you said it all.
Just reemphasize again what an outstanding job I think that the administration and the council has done to move forward for the first responders, not only just police and fire, but the other city employees that have been so vested during these terrible times. So, and thank them for moving forward in the budget, what they have done with our pay raises to show the appreciation. Can't say enough about what a change of administrations this has been. That's all I can say. Yeah, I have to concur with that. That's perfectly said. I was really impressed by every time I've reached out to members of council and to the chief, it's been a very easy, open lines of communication. There's been a lot of contact and interaction, and it's much appreciated. And again, we just would like to thank you for your leadership.
All right, well, thank you all for all that you do and for all that your members do for the city. You're going to get the award for the shortest budget hearing presentation, but there are some council members who would, I believe, have some questions and want a moment to speak. So I'm going to call on Councilman Dustin Hillis first.
And thank you, Chairwoman Ide, and thank you, Sergeant Segura, for the brief presentation and the thank you. Just wanted to say you're very welcome. As I was the Public Safety Chair in 2018 and 2019, me and my colleagues on council all pushed for those very important raises, and it is equally important that we see those through as we are doing in this budget year. And I believe we'll wrap up the final round next year. But just know that we're very thankful for your service to the city and your support, and very glad to hear everything is going smoothly in the police department, and we're in a better position than we were just a couple years ago. So thank you again, and thank you, Chairwoman Ide.
Thank you, Councilmember Hillis. Next, we have Councilmember Marcy Overstreet.
Hi, thank you, Chair Ide, and thank you very much for that swift presentation. Oh, my goodness. But I wanted to talk more about what's needed in the budget for training facilities. I know that conversations are ongoing about where and what exactly our training facilities should look like, but I am advocating for the training facility to be at Greenbrier, and that it's accessible and in some capacity. And I would like you all to weigh in with your expertise about that, what that would look like. Would it be two different areas if you had your wishes, or would it be over in the key area? Where are you with training facilities and how we should budget that?
Well, we've needed a new facility for a long time, and we do go and do some outside training with other agencies and go to their facilities, and they have facilities that are almost set up like classrooms and almost a collegiate environment. And I think that would be a great setup for us as well. I was listening to the fire union talk about the training facility and needing an area for their EVOC training, and I'm sure that we can probably utilize the same facility, so we're not, having to spend and duplicate budgets for that. But we definitely it would be nice to have a training area that's specifically geared towards tactics and police interactions, and then one that's geared towards state law and ordinances and the paperwork side of the job. So are you looking for something specific?
No, I really want you to weigh in on, where you think we are with training. Have you had those conversations? Have you been approached by anyone, the police foundation or administration or anyone, about budget needed for our training facilities?
No, not by so much by the administration. Obviously, there's been a lot going on. We have reached out and we speak pretty regularly with the academy staff, and they tell us about the wants and needs of what they would like, and they're the ones best suited to give the advice as far as what they need to best train the officers. But that's definitely a conversation when we're ready to build that facility. Would like to make sure that we're involved as well as the instructors at the academy, and that way we're spending our money in the wisest possible way.
Exactly. Okay, and so one more question, and it's surrounding the actual. Can you come back to me? Give me just a second. Chair, can you come back?
Sure. We can do. I'll circle back to you. Okay. Let's move on then to Councilmember Shepherd, and then we'll put Councilmember Overstreet back in the lineup.
Well, can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you all for all you all do. We appreciate everything you do for us, our citizens. Y'all on the line every day. And I was just talking to someone yesterday about in light of what was happening in Minneapolis, and they were asking about the police officers here. And we're blessed that we don't seem to have that issue here, and I hope we continue to be blessed with that if you're out there on the line. But just thank you all for what you all do. The police facility and the fire facility is major as far as me. It's just as number one is both of these facilities are in my district, the fire academy and the police academy. I've been at both. Unfortunately, right now the fire academy is closed, which it rightfully should be closed because of the fact that it really is past any repair. So we've been having this discussion for quite some time. And now, unfortunately, as we've been putting it off, we're now at a point where we're having to find a fire facility, another place to train our folks in terms of fire, because of the fact that the facility has been closed since January. I believe when we was out there in December doing a walkthrough at the fire academy, I saw some of the same things. I'm sorry, not the fire academy, the police academy. I saw some of the same things I see at the fire academy. So it's way past time for us to actually work on getting you all a new facility. I'm not sure if it's going to be with this budget this year because of where we are with COVID-19. I know as I talked to the administration last week, the discussion was they're aggressively looking for a new facility for fire temporarily. And I'm going to ask them, because this is coming up now as a discussion, if we can actually have somebody from the administration come and maybe present at the public safety in terms of the status of where we are with our facilities. I think that's really important in terms of making sure that our folks, number one, are trained properly, and they're not in conditions that are hazardous to their health. And so I'm real concerned about that. So I want to thank you all for that. And for everything else you all do. If you all need anything from me as the public safety chair, please feel free to reach out for any concerns you have. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate the support. And when we're ready to move forward on that, I mean, we definitely, in talking with the academy staff, they definitely have a lot of good ideas, and a lot of good ideas that are actually cost-benefit. They're well thought out. And when we get to that point, it'd be nice if we could put together a committee of the instructors, as well as we'd like to be involved in it because, we deal and we talk with everybody. But just to make sure that, we're spending the money wisely and that we're thinking about things in advance so that we're not putting money into areas we don't need and that we're putting every dollar where it's can be best utilized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepard. Do you have more questions, or was that?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me jump back to Ms. Councilmember Overstreet so she can wrap up her questions, and then we'll move on to the next two in line.
Thank you. I remembered that I had written down my questions, and this is pertaining to the actual zone. I feel that we have a 6-mile gap in our coverage for the police department in the southwestern tip of Atlanta, from John A. White Park all the way up to Camp Creek Marketplace. And we have an opportunity now where we could possibly do a study of some sort to see if we have enough zones in our city. What are your thoughts about that? Is there a budgetary consideration for a zone study?
Well, Zone 4 specifically is a very huge spread out zone. Both Zone 4 and Zone 2 are kind of fit that very large area. I mean, if we are to break it up into an additional zone, obviously you're going to need the manpower and equipment that, a lot of the equipment could be redistributed, but you are going to need the manpower to man it. So there's going to be those
those particular costs, as well as the building, the structure, where would it be. I'm particularly aware of the Zone 4 area and the area you're talking about, and with a few of the beats that are really on the outside of the perimeter, it does increase the danger factor, and it has been that way, obviously for years. I think they're doing a great job, a tremendous job out there. But can we do something a little better? I would think that we could, but again, that would be a good discussion to have to find out. Again, is it money well placed? How best to do it? I don't necessarily know that it needs to be a Zone 4 split versus just a realignment, of all the zones, which we do periodically. But I think it's always good to look at how we can improve, and I do think that we probably could do a little better job if we were to maybe reduce the size of that particular area.
Wait, Jason,
I agree with you, and I'm sorry, I'm listening.
Let me comment on what I think that there would be budget-wise to take a look at for that council member.
Yes.
Because of that stretch and the very strange design of how that is, because it's a very strange design in Zone 4, how that got inclusive within the city and all.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the thing that may be productive for this to look at and get a study that's in is having just a sub-precinct that's over there that has additional cars and split that area up a little bit so that you would kind of run like a mini precinct that's out or in there that's specializing in that coverage. But again, it would be looking to see where we could get the right facility and then to look at what the cost of the manpower to add that little bit. But I think that's what helped, because I understand exactly what you're talking about, and especially the officers that I've dealt with on where that is. So to me, that would be one of the ways to go, because when we start talking about realignment, that gets into so much more, as opposed to how do we help to facilitate those for that particular area that is that open stretch. And I think you may be able to look at something in that means to get that where that is manned, and then those broken into maybe some sub beats within themselves, and that I think would help you of what you're looking for your, especially for your contingency out in that area.
So I agree, and that is exactly what I'm hitting on. I just think that we need to budget that. I've been in contact with 2 landowners that are really looking to give the city what we need for, to realign the way we're doing our Zone 4 over here. And I don't know if that should be, a Zone 7 or 8, or if it should be split in half, Zone 4A, 4B. I'm not sure what that would be, but I do know that we have this gap. And I've spoken with several police officers that have really expressed their concern about it. Traffic is getting thicker over here. So if you're actually having to travel the road for those 6 miles, you're really putting people in danger in emergency situations, and it can be avoided because we do have facilities or areas that are, that are open to making sure that the city is well placed where our public safety is concerned. So, just wanted to put that on your radar, because it's something that I'm working on, and I would really like the buy-in of the Brotherhood to help us with making sure that our areas are well covered.
Well, I know that area very well. I've spent the majority of my career in that area, and like Ken was saying, I don't necessarily know that we need another zone. The majority of the issues I think that you're talking about is going to be on the west of 285, and you're right. There's the traffic congestion over there really impedes our ability to get there in a timely manner, and it goes from Camp Creek all the way up to the
Greenbrier.
Yeah, absolutely, and
exactly.
So I think there is something we can do. In the past, I would say it was probably 10 years ago, they had they had a group that worked specifically that area, and I think that they were doing a really good job, but I don't think that there was enough. I think they probably could have done with an additional, say, 3 officers, and so maybe that's what we're looking at being the best, is it just allocating a mini precinct, which they have a mini precinct there, but maybe allocate a little bit more manpower in that area so that we have a better reaction time over there.
And that's what I was going to say. The mini precinct has not been effective. I'm not sure if I'm a mini precinct fan.
The mini precinct the mini precinct actually has served a good purpose, but I think for the purposes of what you're trying to achieve and what I agree with you on, I think they might need one that is, the mini precinct isn't being used for the watch specifically. It's being used for specialized units, the proactive units. But if you had one, and maybe if it was again further west, and I think, and it was designated for patrol as a substation for patrol, I think we could achieve that with maybe again like an additional 3 people per watch.
Okay, so let's continue this conversation. Just want you all to know that one of my budget priorities is to make sure that our zones or all of our zones are adequately placed, and that we are shoring up our public safety every inch of Atlanta, all the way up to Camp Creek Marketplace.
Well, we'd love to sit down and have that conversation with you and help in any way we can.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation and time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Overstreet. Next up, we have Council President Felicia Moore, and then after Council President, we'll have Councilmember Michael Julian Bond, and I think that'll take us to about the close of our time we have allotted today. So, Council President Moore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Many of you I had on my call list, and so now that I have you all together, I want to bring this up. And it may be a budgetary issue if, in fact, some of what you say may relate to that. My heart is heavy, and I'm sure all of us hearts are heavy when we watch the video for George Floyd's death by a police officer. It struck me, and it's been a culmination of issues that have occurred. And, we've had some in Atlanta, so I don't want to act as if Atlanta is immune to it. We just maybe not on the scope nationally and internationally as this case, this most recent case, not to say that there haven't been many, has gotten to us. And so my heart was so heavy. Yesterday I reached out to an officer, an APD officer that I know, who is out there doing great things in the community and trying to bring together police officers and members of the community and create and foster some understanding. And I said to that person, I said, look, until the police officers began to call out and their own officers, when they see that their behavior is egregious and disgusting and just out of control, it doesn't lend to the public having the trust in officers if they're not willing to call out their own. So that's my preference. My question is, from the union standpoint, because I think unions are important because you're representatives of police officers, what ideas, suggestions, or things that you can do and say that can bring some trust and understanding, and more importantly, because we talk about accountability, how do police officers hold other police officers accountable? Do you all need an internal whistleblower, anonymous tip line on each other? Because I know the culture is to sort of protect each other. But what can officers do to help better foster some control within your own ranks so that, there's some accountability, number one. And then number two, how do you, what are your suggestions in better community relations, and what programs or budget items or whatever do we need to do, because this keeps happening. Atlanta's not in the national news today, but we do have our issues as well. So I'll end at that, and I'd love to hear some of your feedback.
Well, personally, I think that open lines of communication and dialogue are going to be our best way to address it. It's kind of a hard topic for a few reasons. Number one, obviously, this is not, we weren't involved in it, but yet every law enforcement professional is affected by it. And when we see something like that happen, it affects us and hurts us all, and we all have opinions on it. It's not, I'm on different forums with police officers, and obviously we have a very diverse department, and there's differences of opinions from officer to officer on things, but yet we have open dialogue, and we talk about it as officers and as a department. But also the thing that's difficult is, again, imagine that you as a council member were judged by all the decisions of all the council members all over the world. And every time that they made a bad decision, everybody turned around and then again blamed you as if you were the one. The officers involved are individuals, and they operated, and they made their decisions individually. And it reflects on us, and that's a terrible thing. To come out and publicly say something is hard as well, because of the fact that in many instances, for me, I was an investigator before I became a supervisor, and also with Ken, he spent his whole life, career as an investigator, and Kevin as well. And there's many times where we might have a preconceived notion of what we think happened because we saw a video or we saw this or that. And then there's so much more that comes out during the investigation. So it wouldn't be right for us, in a lot of cases, to just look at some piece of evidence and then make an indictment on whether it's an officer or whether it's an individual. We need information to say something. And I realize that people want us to have a public outcry and with them and denounce. And this particular situation, might be different than others because of the video, and it seems like it was right there for everybody. But we're trained to sit back and look at all the information before we come up with our opinion on it. And so to rush to come out and condemn, and again, not this particular situation, but in any situation, prematurely is not wise for us to do. So that kind of puts us in a difficult situation. But what I would like to do, and I've talked with Ken, and I've talked with Kevin and our board, is doing something. And how can we best put ourselves in front of community members who want to ask questions so we can have these open dialogues? Because there is no one answer to the question, and it's a very emotional question for you. Obviously, I'm aware of that, but it is also for us. And I think we need to rip Band-Aids off and have these dialogues in a forum where we can kind of, I guess, get to know each other, and that's the best way I think we can move forward. Is we just need to communicate more.
Hey, Jason, if you don't mind, fill in a little bit of this as well for Council President Moore. These type of situations, Council President, are some of the hardest to deal with, based on the fact that the climate we police in and how we carry ourselves in Atlanta is different than many of the other places across the United States. We as a police department are constantly forced with the idea and knowledge of the civil rights that this historic city is built on. the history and historic stuff that occurred within. So our policing and the manner of which we address things and look at stuff is a little bit different. And to come out and talk about other police departments that we're not part of, and you took these individual actions, nobody condones some type of action. And this one, to me, is especially rough, that it turned from an incarceration to a punishment that unfortunately ended up in death. And I think that we'll see how the outcome of this will be through the court system. But as law enforcement, to come out and condemn the actions of another law enforcement moves, that I don't think that would ever be beneficial for either the population or the police department for us to make statements like that. There's no way that we would condone any type of action like this, but for us to come out and talk and condemn it, as opposed to having conversations. We've talked, again, and you know that we got involved with Reverend Hutchins. We tried to do the one cop, one precinct, one congregation that is going on, that he's got on a national movement. We did our town hall over at Morehouse. We as this union have been upfront about any of these conversations that we want to have about police actions that are going on, because we know that the young kids that come here and go to Morehouse and go to the other colleges that are here on it are looked across the nation by their other students in the other places to say something and to be involved in the rights movement and make sure that the civil rights are being handled for the African Americans that are out there. So we understand that course and want to be engaged in that conversation, but we've never really got that off the board when we have tried it on several different attempts. And maybe you as council president can help us get there so that we can have these hard conversations on it. We should be interacting with the kids over at Morehouse and Atlanta and Spelman. We should be interacting with them on a regular basis so that they understand us and we understand them. And we don't have that, but we've yet to have someone try to put those together. And since you're asking council about where we stand or what we feel about it, and you have such a strong tie to this on it, maybe we can start to put those communications together, and we can start to have some of the meetings with smaller groups that we could slowly build better so that we would have the communication that we need and have a better feeling and response when these type of actions occur, when we see it across the nation and they feel that there has to be some type of action taken for them.
Well, I appreciate that suggestion, and you were on my call list, and I'll be more than happy to reach out to you and see that. I know this did not happen in Atlanta, but Atlanta has had its issues too. It may not be to this magnitude, and I just think that we've got to find a way to make sure that we develop some sort of communication, and it's about relationship building, and it's not when something happens. It happens before that, and I just wanted to hear some of your suggestions on how we do that, but I'm not going to belabor this call with that, but I will be more than happy to sit down with you and see if we can come up with some things, because unfortunately this is not something that's just a one and done. It happens over and over and over again, and it just makes a bigger, wider divide, whether it happens here in Atlanta or anywhere else, between citizens, particularly in the black community, and the police officers. Thank you so much for your suggestion. I look forward to following up with you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Forward to talk to you too, Council President.
Okay.
Thank you, Council President Moore. We are over our time, but I have Mr. Bond in the lineup, and then Councilmember Shepherd for one last closing question remark. So we're going to go for another few minutes just to get down the list, but I do want to respect people's time. So, Mr. Bond, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for your brief presentation. Thank you for the service that you provide to our citizens. I want to ditto what the Council President has brought up, and I also want to mention that about 10 years ago, when I first returned to the City Council, then Council President Mitchell, when I was serving as Chair of Public Safety, he put together a type of coalition. I don't want to say it was a division, but it was a panel made up of APD and the police around the AU Center, and we did have regular meetings at that time with the students to get their input. And I think the suggestion to do that again is more than appropriate and should be ongoing and reoccurring. But I also, in listening to the previous conversation, reminded me of two things. One, when I first became aware of Hosea Williams and the Atlanta Police as a citizen, I was in the first grade over at Overthorpe Elementary School, and over at McDaniel Glen, there was a fatal shooting involving APD and an African-American male. The gentleman was shot and killed. He was handcuffed and shot in the back. And Jose Williams was all over the news about it. And that, to me, you know, as a young African-American child, I guess about 6 years old, I mean, that shook my worldview at the time of police. Shifted to the part two of that, I got to know a gentleman. They used to have a concept called officer friendly in the schools. There was a police officer, I believe he retired in the 90s, David Hood, had been the officer friendly that I had gotten to know. And as a child, as a young African-American person, having that relationship kind of changed and exposed me to more than just the perspective of what I had seen on the news with my parents as far as police. I think I agree with you. I think it is important for us to continue to have dialogue about what goes on, not only in Atlanta and being open about it and being communicative about it, but these dynamics around the country that are too often and too unfortunate. So I just wanted to put myself out there that if there are communications, if there, Madam President, and to our folks in the police union, if there are efforts in this way to reconstruct some of this relationship building and make it a reoccurring and permanent occurrence, you know, I'm putting myself out there. I'm available to both of you to do that. But quick, and also to address something that Ms. Overstreet raised when it comes to the zone issues. About 10 years ago, when I returned to the council, one of the first pieces of legislation I put together was to do the beat realignments for the entire city. And that's now become a routine thing, but it really ought to track with the census. And during that time, the previous Chief Turner, and again when I became public safety chair, they had actually had real conversations about setting up a seventh zone for the city, but it was the cost that prevented them, they thought, for moving on it. But it doesn't take much to begin to study these issues, Ms. Overstreet. The council simply passed a resolution I introduced, and that began the process. But I also want to focus. My actual question, though, is about the police raises and compensation. Councilmember Hill has referenced them. It was a privilege to support it and to advocate it. And having been long serving down here, it is a relief that we've actually that we have to come to a place where we're going to make this happen and ensure that it happens. My question to the union is, where do we stand in comparison to other agencies? We're going to top out a commitment next year on salary, but I'm concerned about the year after that and the year after that. I want us to continue to be the leader in salary and compensation for our police, and I want to know where do we stand in comparison to other agencies, And is the salary compensation enough, or should we go back and look at some pension and other fringe benefits?
Well, when we first started working on this, part of this the salary discussion was built on, once we get where the salary adjustment is in place, that puts us in a very in a competitive place. But also the discussion was going to be that there was going to be an ongoing annual board that discussed, on an annual basis, what changes are going on to make sure that we continue to remain competitive. This process is taking about 3.5 years to get from the starting point where we started with the officers, and then we moved up to the investigators and SPOs, and now that the sergeants and lieutenants are starting to get impacted positively on this. So there's always, it's always going to be a moving target because the world is an evolving place and the market's always an evolving place. But I think if we follow the Mercer study and then continue to have the annual dialogue as far as to make sure that we'll remain competitive, I think we can, stay ahead of it. And with your guys' commitment to participate in that's just going to make it that much easier for us to make sure that we remain competitive and reduce the loss of manpower that we've seen over the years.
Has that panel, has that group been impaneled? Are they meeting now, or is it scheduled to come online after that your commitment is made?
It hasn't come online. My understanding, and Ken, you can chime in on this, I believe what was going to happen is it was going to be driven by council, that you were going to put together the panel that was going to include us, as well as some members of council. But Ken, you have anything on that?
Yeah, it never got back off it. I mean, we were going to reestablish the group that former Council President Cesar Mitchell had placed to talk to salary compensation, and then, one thing led to another. We got stuff that was sidetracked, and it never got off the ground. But I will say, to the point, Councilman Bond, is that once we lifted the salary and did what we did, a lot of the starting salaries across the United States and some of the other bigger ones, like Dallas, Texas, some of the other places, they immediately jumped it to $60,000. So competitively, we're there, but we are certainly in a challenging state as we're going. And as you know, applications, from my understanding, nationwide for law enforcement is down somewhere between 35 and 40%. So we're having a hard time bringing in candidates for the future that want this job. It's just not a sought after job any longer of what we're looking at. So we've got to do some things. I think, again, as you're talking about benefit wise, we've come up with a couple of things that we proposed and again held back from now because of the pandemic and the other things that are in place. But there are some adjustments that we feel that will help attract better candidates and things that are going on. But it goes back to that ugly 4-letter word, pension, and making some adjustments to what we did on that pension reform that we did back in 2011 that will make us a stronger candidacy to somehow possibly return to the facet of getting a 50% pension for these people with still an opportunity to do a little bit of a hybrid plan.
Okay, thank you for that. I just quickly want to say to Council President Moore, Council Public Safety Chair, and our finance chair that is one of the suggestions out of this meeting that we reconstitute that panel and get it moving and active so that we can begin the long-term planning so that we don't fall behind ever again on the salaries and compensation on our police and public safety personnel. And just quickly, one more point, and I'll relate, because I want to thank you gentlemen for your presentation. And also, Chairwoman Ide, if we can also follow up with the, I think it's the Police and Fire Public Safety Building Authority. That's the authority that the city created. The name may be wrong, but that's the authority the city created to build the public safety building and look at the indebtedness or the debt liability that authority has. They floated a particular specific type of bond to build that building and look at whether it ends up over at the Greenbrier area or on the Key Road land to look at financial options for building these public safety facilities because having we have and the equipment and facility needs to make sure that we always have strong and ongoing draw for people to come and work for Atlanta. But I know those bonds were let, I guess, in the early 2000s in the Franklin administration. And I'm not sure if they were 15-year bonds or 20-year bonds, but they've got, it's been at least 15 years. So they may be approaching some level of maturity that might be able to be refinanced. That may allow us to float or another bond issuance to get these facilities made. So if you could add that to the list of suggestions, I would really appreciate it. And I will relinquish the floor. Thank you.
We will do that. We will do that, Councilmember Bond. I'll make sure that that's on our list. And I'm going to turn it over to our Public Safety Chair, Joyce Shepard, for our final questions and comments for this session.
Yes, thank you, Chair Ide. And I want to thank you all also, Police Department and the union, for what you all do for the city. Again, as I said, let me just say that as I was speaking earlier in reference to Minneapolis, I believe that one of the reasons that we are not struggling as hard as other cities is because we went through our crisis. We went through our crisis with Kathleen Brown over in District 3. Kathleen Johnson, I believe that was her name, in District 3. And that was a huge learning lesson for us. And then even after that, we had some other incidents. And so I'm hoping, and I love what you all talked about earlier in terms of actually reaching out to make sure we can continue to have these conversations in reference to making sure that we are all on the same page in terms of equity and racism and all the other things that happen in our city. I really pray and hope that we can continue to have this dialogue. I will be talking to Ms. Moore about that, and also the police chief and everyone else. I had some questions in reference to some particular things, but I won't ask them now. I'll wait, and I'll talk to the chief about that as opposed to asking you all. I think it's probably more in the purview of the police department and the chief. But thank you all for what you all do. Thank you, Chairman Ide.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepard. Thank you to all my colleagues for joining us and being here today, and thank you for all of our brave Atlanta police officers. This was a really great discussion that we've had, and we will certainly follow up on all the questions that were raised that we didn't get run down today. So thank you for being here, and this concludes our budget hearings for today.
All right, thank you so much again, Council, for the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.